A man who hasn't been touched in 10 years. A dancer who doesn't know fear. One handshake, and an empire begins to crack. In a ballroom full of predators, Nyla Vance walked straight to the most dangerous man alive and said, "Dance with me." Cade Minseo stood. He took her hand, and in that single moment, everything he'd buried came screaming back to life. This is their story. Brutal, electric, impossible. Watch until the end, hit that like button, and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Let's begin. The ballroom smelled like money and lies. Cade Minseo sat in the corner booth, fingers wrapped around a glass of scotch he hadn't touched in 20 minutes. The ice had melted. He didn't care. Around him, Seoul's most dangerous men laughed too loud, their wives glittering in diamonds bought with blood money. Chandeliers dripped overhead like frozen tears, throwing fractured light across marble floors polished to a mirror shine. He watched them all. Said nothing. His second-in-command, Jin, leaned in close enough that Cade could smell the cigarette smoke clinging to his collar. "The Busan delegation wants a meeting. Tuesday. They're pushing the heroin route through—" "No." Jin blinked. "Boss, they're offering—" "I said no." Cade's voice was flat, final. He didn't bother looking at Jin. His eyes tracked the room like a predator calculating exits, threats, weaknesses. 10 years running this organization. 10 years since he'd allowed anyone close enough to matter. 10 years since he'd felt anything at all. Jin backed off. Smart man. The last person who'd pushed Cade on a decision was still missing 3 fingers. The music shifted, a slow waltz, strings heavy and mourning. Couples drifted onto the dance floor, moving in careful circles. Cade watched them with something close to contempt. All that touching, all that pretending they weren't afraid of each other. He used to dance, a lifetime ago, before Soohyun, before the betrayal, before he'd learned that love was just another weapon people used to destroy you. The thought of her came sharp and sudden. Soohyun in her favorite blue dress, laughing as he spun her across their apartment, her hands warm against his shoulders. "You're terrible at this," she'd teased. "I know," he'd said, and kissed her anyway. 3 weeks later, they'd sent him her fingers in a box. Cade's jaw tightened. He drained the scotch in one swallow, ice and all, letting the burn ground him back to the present. The past was a grave. He'd buried it deep. No point digging it up now. Then the music stopped. Not a gentle fade, a full stop, mid-phrase, the violinist's bow lifting in confusion. The ballroom went silent. Heads turned. A woman stood in the center of the dance floor. She wore red, crimson silk that caught the light and held it, a dress that moved like blood in water. Dark hair spilled over bare shoulders. Her skin was brown, warm against the cold opulence of the room, and when she lifted her chin, Cade saw her eyes. Unafraid. She scanned the crowd slowly, deliberately, as if she were counting exits too. Then her gaze landed on him, and held. Cade felt something shift in his chest, a muscle memory, a ghost of a reaction he'd thought he'd killed. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched as she began to walk toward him. The room held its breath. Jin muttered, "Who the hell?" Quiet. Every step she took was controlled, purposeful, not a model's sway, a dancer's precision. She moved like someone who understood her body as a weapon, as a language, as a choice. Men stepped back as she passed. Women whispered behind jeweled hands. She didn't look at any of them. She stopped 3 feet from Cade's booth, close enough that he could see the slight tremor in her hands, fear, adrenaline, maybe both, and the way she steadied them. Her breathing was careful, measured. Up close, she was younger than he'd thought. Mid-20s, maybe. There were shadows under her eyes, faint but present. Someone who didn't sleep enough. Someone carrying weight. She extended her hand. "Dance with me." Her voice was low, steady. American accent, California maybe. The English syllables felt foreign in a room full of Korean power brokers, jarringly out of place and somehow perfectly deliberate. Cade stared at her hand. Slender fingers. No rings. Calluses along the edges. A worker's hands. A performer's hands. He could see her pulse jumping in her wrist. Jin half rose from his seat. "Miss, this is a private—" I wasn't talking to you. Her eyes never left Cade's face. The silence stretched. Across the ballroom, conversations had stopped entirely. Everyone was watching now, waiting to see what the untouchable Cade Minseo would do to the woman who just walked up and issued a command. Because that's what it was. Not a request. A challenge. Cade felt something ugly and electric coil in his stomach. Anger. Curiosity. Something worse. He should have her removed, should have Jin drag her out by her hair and make an example that would echo through Seoul's underworld for years. You don't approach Cade Minseo. You don't speak to him unless spoken to. You sure as hell don't touch him. But there was something in her eyes. Not stupidity, not arrogance. Recognition, maybe. Like she could see past the myth, past the tailored suit and the body count, straight into the hollow space where a man used to be. And she'd decided he was worth the risk anyway. 5 seconds passed. Then Cade stood. Jin's eyes went wide. Somewhere in the crowd, a woman gasped. Cade was taller than her by half a foot, broader by design. He'd spent 10 years making himself into a weapon, and it showed in the way he moved, in the scars hidden beneath expensive fabric, in the absolute stillness that came before violence. He looked down at her hand, still extended, still steady. Then he took it. Her skin was warm. The touch hit him like a bullet, sudden, visceral, devastating. He felt her palm against his, felt the delicate bones of her fingers, felt her, and something inside him that had been frozen for a decade cracked wide open. She didn't flinch, just curled her fingers around his and stepped closer. "Lead," she said quietly, "or follow. I don't care which." The music started again. Someone had signaled the orchestra, and they picked up where they'd left off, strings swelling into something slow and aching. Cade's other hand moved automatically to her waist, muscle memory from another life, and they began to move. He hadn't danced in 10 years. His body remembered anyway. They moved together in silence, her following his lead with an ease that suggested years of training. She was good, better than good. Every step precise, every turn anticipated. But she wasn't performing. This was something else, something private, even in front of 300 witnesses. Cade could feel the heat of her body through the silk, could smell something faint and floral, jasmine maybe, underneath the ballroom's champagne and perfume haze. Her breathing matched his, slow and controlled. "You're him," she said finally. Not a question. "Yes." Cade Minseo, the Ghost King. He almost smiled. "Is that what they're calling me now?" "Among other things." She met his eyes, unflinching. "Most people are too scared to say your name out loud." "Most people are smarter than you." "Probably." She tilted her head slightly, studying him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "You haven't touched another person in 10 years. The statement landed like a punch. Cade's hand tightened fractionally on her waist, not enough to hurt, but enough that she'd feel it. "You did your homework." "I had to. I'm dancing with a man who's killed more people than I've met." No accusation in her voice, just fact. Seemed like the kind of thing I should know. "And yet you walked up anyway." "Yeah." Something flickered across her face. Determination, recklessness, desperation. "I did." They turned together, her dress flaring out like spilled wine. Cade guided her through the steps automatically, his mind working. This wasn't random. She'd come here for a reason. For him, specifically. "What do you want?" he asked. "Right now, to finish this dance without getting shot?" After that. She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, more real. "I need money. A lot of it. Fast." There it was, the truth underneath the bravado. "Family," Cade guessed. Her jaw tightened. "My mother, cancer, the treatments." She stopped herself, shaking her head. "It doesn't matter. I was told you pay well for private performances." "I don't." "Then someone lied to me." She didn't sound surprised, just tired. "Story of my life." The song was ending. Around them, other couples were slowing, preparing to separate. Cade felt her start to pull back, felt the warmth of her hand beginning to slip away from his. He held on. She froze, looking up at him with sudden wariness. For the first time since she'd approached him, he saw real fear flash across her face. "What's your name?" he asked. "Nyla. Nyla Vance." "How much do you need, Nyla Vance?" She blinked. "What?" "For your mother." "How much?" She swallowed hard. 200,000. Maybe more. I don't know exactly. The doctors keep... "You'll have it. Tomorrow." Her eyes went wide. "What's the catch?" Cade looked at her. Really looked at her. At the exhaustion carved into the lines around her mouth, the defiance still burning in her eyes, the way she held herself together through sheer force of will. She reminded him of someone. Soo-hyun, maybe. Or himself, before the world had beaten the humanity out of him. "You'll come back," he said. "Here, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. "Why?" "Because I'm asking." "And if I say no?" He released her hand slowly, deliberately. The absence of her touch felt like a door closing. "Then you say no. The money's yours either way." That shocked her more than anything else he'd done. She stared at him, searching his face for the lie, for the trap. She wouldn't find it. Cade didn't know why he'd made the offer. Didn't know what he wanted from her, if anything. All he knew was that for the first time in 10 years, he'd felt something, and he wasn't ready to let it go yet. "Why are you doing this?" Nyla asked quietly. Cade stepped back, putting distance between them. Around them, the ballroom was starting to move again, conversations resuming, the spell breaking. But people were still watching, still whispering. "Because you made me feel something I thought was dead," he said, "and I want to know if it was real." Then he turned and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the center of the dance floor in her crimson dress, looking like a question he didn't know how to answer. Jin caught up to him in the hallway outside the ballroom. "Boss, who the hell was that?" "No one." Cade's voice was flat again, empty. The walls were back up. "Transfer 200,000 to this account by morning." He pulled out his phone, typed quickly. "Medical bills. Mother with cancer. Make sure it's clean." "Clean money for some random dancer?" Jin's eyebrows shot up. "Since when do we—" "Since I said so." Cade's tone could have cut glass. "Is that a problem?" Jin raised his hands in surrender. "No problem, boss. Just unusual." Unusual. That was one word for it. Cade made it to his car, a black Mercedes with bulletproof glass and a driver who knew when to keep his mouth shut. The door closed behind him, sealing him into familiar silence, leather and steel. Control. But he could still feel her hand in his. He looked down at his palm, half expecting to see a mark there, some evidence of the touch that had fractured 10 years of careful numbness. Nothing, just skin, just him. "Where to, Mr. Minseo?" the driver asked. "Home." The car pulled away from the venue, sliding into Seoul's midnight traffic. Neon signs blazed past the windows. Restaurants, clubs, brothels, all of them paying tribute to Cade's organization in one way or another. An empire built on fear and violence, and the kind of loyalty that came from knowing exactly what happened to traitors. He'd built it all himself. After Soo-hyun died. After he'd hunted down everyone involved. The rival gang members who'd ordered the hit. The corrupted cop who'd leaked her location. The friend who'd sold them out for 30 pieces of silver and a promise of promotion. Cade had killed them all. Slowly. Personally. And then he'd killed the part of himself that could love. It had seemed necessary at the time. Logical. You couldn't run an empire if you had weaknesses. Couldn't make the hard calls if your heart was still soft enough to bleed. So he'd cut it out. Become the Ghost King. Untouchable. Unreachable. Until tonight. Until Nyla Vance had walked up in her red dress and asked him to dance. Cade closed his eyes, leaning his head back against the seat. This was a mistake. He knew it bone deep, the same way he knew when a deal was going to go bad or when someone was about to betray him. Letting her back in, letting anyone in, was asking for disaster, but he'd asked her to come back anyway. His phone buzzed, a text from Jin. "Account info received, money will be transferred by 800. Anything else?" Cade stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he typed, "Background check, full workup. I want to know everything." The response came immediately. "On it." He put the phone away and looked out at the city streaming past. Seoul at night, beautiful and ruthless, full of people trying to survive and people trying to rule. He'd been both. at different points in his life. Now he didn't know what he was. The car pulled up to his building, a penthouse in Gangnam, all glass and steel and security measures that would make a bank jealous. The driver opened the door. Cade stepped out into the underground garage, footsteps echoing on concrete. His home was silent. 30 floors above the city, insulated from noise and life and everything human. Exactly how he'd designed it. He poured himself another scotch, sat in the dark living room, looking out at the skyline, and thought about Nyla Vance. The way she'd moved, the calluses on her hands, the exhaustion in her eyes, and the steel in her spine. A dancer fighting to save her mother, desperate enough to walk up to Seoul's most dangerous man and demand a dance. Brave. Stupid. Both. Cade wondered if she'd come back tomorrow. Wondered what he'd do if she did. Wondered what the hell he was thinking, opening a door he'd welded shut a decade ago. His phone buzzed again, Jin, working fast. A preliminary report, Nyla Vance. Age 26. American citizen, Los Angeles born. Professional dancer, currently in Seoul on a work visa. No criminal record. Mother. Linda Vance, stage 4 ovarian cancer, currently at Seoul National University Hospital. Brother. Marcus Vance, age 19, college student. Financial situation, critical. 3 months behind on rent. Multiple medical debts. Last performance contract ended 6 weeks ago. The report continued, but Cade stopped reading. He'd seen enough. She was exactly what she'd appeared to be. No hidden agenda. No rival organization pulling strings. Just a desperate woman trying to save the person she loved, willing to risk everything on a long shot. Exactly the kind of person Cade should stay away from. Exactly the kind of person who could destroy him. He should cancel tomorrow. Should have Jin send the money with a note. Don't come back. Instead, he texted, make sure security knows to expect her. 8 o'clock. No weapons check. She's a guest. Jin's response, understood. Cade could practically hear the confusion in that pause. In 10 years, he'd never invited anyone to his home. Business happened in offices, in warehouses, in the back rooms of restaurants. Never here. Never in the space he'd built to keep the world out. But he was inviting her in. He didn't sleep that night. Sat in the dark, watching the city, feeling the ghost of her hand in his. Morning came gray and cold. Cade went through his usual routine, workout, shower, coffee, briefings. Numbers and territories and violence, the machinery of empire grinding forward. He had 3 meetings scheduled, 2 shipments to oversee, 1 problem that would likely require someone to disappear. He handled it all with his usual precision. No one looking at him would have known anything had changed, but Jin knew. Jin had worked for him for 8 years, survived where others had failed, learned to read the small tells that most people missed. You're distracted, Jin said during a break between meetings. No. The dancer. Cade looked at him, didn't deny it. Jin sighed, pulling out a cigarette and then remembering he couldn't smoke in here. Boss, with respect, say it. This is dangerous. You haven't let anyone close since... He stopped. You didn't mention Soo-hyun. Not ever. In a long time. And now some American girl shows up and you're writing checks and inviting her to your home? Your point? My point is, you're the most careful man I know. You don't make moves without thinking 12 steps ahead. This feels like impulse. And impulse gets people killed. Cade leaned back in his chair, studying Jin. Loyal, pragmatic. Right, probably. Noted, he said. Jin threw his hands up. That's it? Noted? What do you want me to say? That I know it's a bad idea? I do. That she could be a liability? She could. That letting anyone matter is the quickest way to a bullet? Cade's voice was quiet, controlled. I already know all of that, Jin. I wrote the rules. Then why? Because I'm tired. The admission came out harder than he'd intended. 10 years of this. Of being empty. Of watching everyone around me pretend they're not terrified every time I walk into a room. She looked at me like I was human, and He stopped, shook his head. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. Jin was quiet for a long moment, then, if she betrays you, she won't. But if she does, then you know what to do. Jin nodded slowly. They both knew what happened to traitors, what had happened to Soo-hyun's killer, what would happen to anyone who threatened Cade's survival. Even her. Especially her, if it came to that. The money's been transferred, Jin said finally. Confirmed received by Seoul National University Hospital, credited to Linda Vance's account. We also paid off the daughter's rent arrears and cleared about $40,000 in smaller debts. She's clean now. Good. She's going to ask questions. About why? About what you want. Let her ask. Jin left, shaking his head. Cade returned to his work, contracts, territories, the careful chess game of organized crime. But part of his mind was already on tonight, on whether she'd actually show up, on what he'd do if she did. Nyla Vance stood outside the hospital, staring at her phone like it had personally offended her. The text from the hospital's billing department had come through an hour ago. All outstanding charges for patient Linda Vance have been paid in full. Account balance, $0. $247,000. Gone. Just like that. She'd called them 3 times, convinced it was a mistake. They'd confirmed. Payment received from a private account, completely legitimate. Everything cleared. He'd actually done it. The most dangerous man in Seoul had danced with her once, and then paid off her mother's cancer treatments like it was pocket change. Nyla sat down on a bench outside the hospital entrance, hands shaking. She didn't know if she wanted to laugh or cry or scream. Relief crashed through her in waves. Her mother was covered. The treatments could continue. She could breathe for the first time in months. But underneath the relief was something colder, dread. Because men like Cade didn't do favors. They made investments, and she'd just become one. You'll come back. Tomorrow night. 8 o'clock. Tonight. She should run. Should take the gift and disappear. Get her mother stable enough to travel and get out of Korea before whatever debt she'd just incurred came due. But she'd looked into Cade's eyes last night. Had seen something there. Something broken and desperate and achingly human. He'd held her hand like it was the first time he'd touched another person in years. Because it was. The rumors about him were legend. The Mafia Boss who never made physical contact with anyone. Who ran his empire through fear and distance. Who'd once killed a man for brushing against him in a crowded restaurant. And he'd danced with her. Nyla pulled up her phone's messaging app. The address Jin had sent her this morning stared back. A Gangnam high-rise, penthouse level. Security would be expecting her at 8. She had 7 hours to decide. Her phone rang. Marcus, her baby brother.
Hey, she answered, trying to sound normal. Nyla, oh my God, the hospital called Mom and said everything's paid? Marcus sounded like he was about to hyperventilate. What did you? I got a contract, she lied. Private performance, really good money. That's incredible. Mom's crying, she's so relieved. The doctor said they can start the next round of chemo tomorrow, and he paused. Wait, how good a contract are we talking? Good enough. Nyla. His voice dropped, suspicious. What did you do? I danced, Marcus, that's all. I danced. It wasn't a lie, not technically. They talked for a few more minutes, Marcus babbling about their mother's prognosis, about his finals next week, about maybe actually believing things might work out. Nyla listened, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. This was why she'd done it, why she'd put on that red dress and walked into a room full of criminals and demanded a dance from a man who could have killed her with his bare hands. Family, the only thing that mattered. When Marcus finally hung up, Nyla sat in the afternoon sun and tried to figure out who she was now. A dancer, a daughter, a woman who'd caught the attention of Seoul's ghost king and lived to tell about it, a woman who had a choice to make. 6 hours now. At 7:45, Nyla stood in front of her bathroom mirror, arguing with her reflection. She'd changed outfits 4 times, settled finally on something simple, black jeans, a silk blouse the color of midnight, her hair pulled back in a low bun. Elegant, but not trying too hard. Professional, but not cold. Like she had any idea what the dress code was for visiting a mafia boss. Her roommate, Sunmi, leaned against the doorframe. You're really going? I have to. You really don't. Sunmi crossed her arms. Nyla, this guy is dangerous, like actually dangerous. I looked him up. There are rumors he's killed people himself, with his bare hands. I know. Then why? Because he kept his word. Nyla turned to face her. He paid for my mom. Everything. He could have just not. Could have let me walk away. But he did it. And now you feel like you owe him. Don't I? Sunmi sighed. Just be careful, okay? Text me every hour. If I don't hear from you by midnight, I'm calling the police. The police are half on his payroll. Then I'll call the American embassy, or your brother, or I'll text you. Nyla hugged her, quick and tight. I'll be fine. She didn't know if that was true. The car arrived at 7:55, a sleek black sedan with a driver who opened the door without speaking. Nyla slid into the back seat, her heart hammering, 20 minutes through Seoul's evening traffic. The city lights blurred past, neon and steel, beautiful and harsh. The car pulled into an underground garage, security gates opening automatically. The elevator ride to the penthouse took forever. When the doors opened, Jin was waiting. He looked her over with the cold assessment of a man used to evaluating threats. Ms. Vance? That's me. Any weapons? Just my sparkling personality. He didn't smile. This way. The penthouse was exactly what she'd expected. Expensive, minimal, cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furniture that looked uncomfortable. Art on the walls that probably cost more than her childhood home. No personal touches. No photos. No warmth. Cade stood by the windows, his back to her. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. No jacket. No tie. More human than he'd looked last night. You came, he said without turning around. You asked. I gave you a choice. Did you? Nyla stepped further into the room, her shoes silent on polished wood. Or did you buy me? That made him turn. His eyes found hers across the space, dark and unreadable. You think the money was payment? Wasn't it? It was a gift, no strings. Right. She laughed, short and bitter. Because that's how the world works. Rich men just hand out hundreds of thousands of dollars for fun. I'm not most men. You're a crime lord. Yes. No denial. No excuse. Does that change your answer? Nyla looked at him, really looked. At the scar above his left eyebrow, barely visible. At the way he held himself, coiled and ready. At the emptiness in his eyes that she recognized because she'd seen it in her own mirror. Two people trying to survive their own wars. I'm here, aren't I? She said finally. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, or hunger. Hard to tell. Why? He asked. Because you asked me to dance last night, and you didn't let go. She took a step closer. Because you looked at me like I was the first real thing you'd seen in years. Because I think... She stopped herself. Because you think what? I think you're drowning, Nyla said quietly, and I know what that looks like. The silence stretched between them, heavy with things neither of them knew how to say. Then Cade moved, crossed the space between them in 3 strides, stopped close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell the expensive cologne, and underneath it something darker, gunpowder and danger. I shouldn't have asked you to come, he said. Probably not. You should leave, right now. Forget this happened. Should I? His hand lifted, slowly, giving her time to move away. His fingers brushed her jaw, feather-light, and Nyla felt electricity race down her spine. I haven't wanted anything in 10 years, Cade said, his voice rough. And now I can't stop thinking about you, about the way you looked walking toward me, about how your hand felt in mine, about... He stopped, jaw clenching. This is dangerous for both of us. I know. Then why are you still here? Nyla reached up, covering his hand with hers, holding him there. Because I'm tired of running, she said. Because my whole life has been about surviving, taking care of Mom, raising Marcus, dancing until my feet bled just to make rent. And last night for 5 minutes I felt alive. Really alive. And if that's dangerous, she met his eyes. Then I'll take dangerous over empty. Cade stared at her like she'd just spoken a language he'd forgotten he knew. Then his other hand came up, cupping her face, and he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was 10 years of starvation crashing into the first taste of something real, desperate and claiming and absolutely terrifying. Nyla kissed him back just as hard,
her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Cade pressed his forehead against hers. "Stay," he whispered. "Okay. Just stay." So she did. And somewhere in the dark behind Cade's perfect empty penthouse, something shifted. A door opening. A wound reopening. The Ghost King remembered what it felt like to want something more than power, remembered what it felt like to be human. And in the shadows of Soul's criminal underworld, that single moment of weakness began to ripple outward, noticed, calculated, weaponized. Because Cade Manseo had just revealed the one thing he'd spent 10 years hiding, a heart that could still break. Nyla woke to sunlight cutting through floor-to-ceiling windows and the disorienting realization that she wasn't in her cramped studio apartment, Cade's penthouse, Cade's bed. She sat up slowly, the silk sheets pooling around her waist. Her clothes from last night were folded neatly on a chair. Someone had done that. Probably not Cade himself. The room was massive, minimalist, aggressively impersonal. No photos, no clutter, nothing that suggested a human being actually lived here. Except her, apparently. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. She'd slept nearly 12 hours. Nyla padded barefoot across cold marble floors, following the scent of coffee. The penthouse looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more lonely, expensive art on white walls, designer furniture that had never been sat in, a kitchen that gleamed like it had never cooked a meal. Cade stood at the counter, fully dressed in dark slacks and a crisp shirt, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. He looked up when she entered, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, like he'd half expected her to be gone. "Morning," she said. "It's almost 10. Is that a problem?" "No." He pushed one of the mugs toward her. "I wasn't sure how you take it. Black's fine." Nyla wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into her palms. They stood in silence for a moment, the morning after settling between them like a third person. "So, that happened. Regrets?" Cade's voice was carefully neutral. "Should I have them?" "Probably." Nyla took a sip of coffee, expensive, smooth, nothing like the instant powder she usually made in her apartment. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. More," she gestured vaguely. "Monster, less person." "Disappointed?" "Terrified, actually." She met his eyes over the rim of her mug. "Because monsters are easy. You know where you stand. But this?" She gestured between them. "This is complicated." Cade set his coffee down, his jaw tightening. "I can have Jin take you home. We can pretend last night didn't happen." "Can we?" "I've pretended worse things." "I bet you have." Nyla moved closer, studying him. In the morning light, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He hadn't slept. "But I don't think you want to. What I want is irrelevant." "Is it?" She set her own mug down, stepped into his space. "Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who spent 10 years trying not to want anything, and now you do, and it's scaring the hell out of you." Cade's hand shot out, gripping her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Nyla didn't pull away. "You killed everyone who hurt you, built an empire so no one could touch you again, turned yourself into a ghost. And it worked, didn't it? For 10 years, until some desperate dancer showed up and asked you to dance." His grip tightened fractionally. "Nyla." "I'm not afraid of you," she said quietly. "I know I should be, but I'm not." "Then you're an idiot." "Probably." She smiled, small and sad. "But I'm your idiot. Apparently. At least for now." Cade stared at her like she was a bomb he didn't know how to defuse. Then he released her wrist, stepped back, putting distance between them. "This won't end well," he said. "Most things don't. I'm serious. People who get close to me, they get hurt. Or worse. Then don't let them get hurt." Nyla crossed her arms. "You run half of Soul's underworld. You can't protect one person?" "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because..." He stopped himself, turning away. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "Because the last woman I loved, they sent me her fingers in a box.
and that was before they started cutting. The words landed like stones in still water. Nyla felt them ripple through her, cold and brutal. "Soo-hyun," she said softly.
Cade's shoulders went rigid. "Jin told you." "No, I asked around before the gala." She moved closer again, careful now. "I know what happened to her. I know what you did after. And I know that's why you don't let anyone touch you." "Then you understand why this is impossible."
"I understand why you think it is." Nyla reached out, fingertips brushing his shoulder blade. He flinched but didn't pull away. "But here's the thing, Cade. I didn't ask you to save me. I didn't ask you to pay my mother's bills or invite me here or kiss me like the world was ending. You did that. You made a choice. A mistake. Maybe. But it's made now." She slid her hand down his arm, found his hand, laced their fingers together. "So what are you going to do about it?"
Cade looked down at their joined hands. 10 years of rules, shattered. 10 years of control, slipping. "I don't know," he admitted. Before Nyla could respond, the elevator chimed. Jin's voice called out, tense and urgent. "Boss, we have a problem." Cade's entire demeanor shifted in an instant, from vulnerable to lethal. He released Nyla's hand, moved toward the living room. "What kind of problem?" Jin appeared in the doorway, stopped short when he saw Nyla. His eyes flicked between them, calculating. Then he pulled out his phone, showed Cade the screen. "Surveillance picked this up 2 hours ago. Someone's been watching the building. 3 different teams, rotating shifts." Cade studied the photos. Grainy images of men in cars on street corners, too professional to be random. "Busan." "Maybe. Or the Russians. Hard to tell." Jin's gaze slid to Nyla again. "Word's out, boss. About the gala. About her." Nyla's stomach went cold. "What does that mean?" "It means," Cade said, his voice flat, "that everyone now know I have a weakness. I'm not a weakness. You are to them." He handed the phone back to Jin. "Double security. I want eyes on every entrance, every floor. No one gets in without clearance." "Already done. But boss..." Jin hesitated. "This is going to escalate. They're testing boundaries, seeing what you'll do." "Let them test." "And if they push?" Cade's expression went cold, empty, the Ghost King sliding back into place. "Then they'll learn why people are afraid of me." Jin nodded, started to leave, then paused. The Busan delegation called again. They want an answer on the heroin route. They're not taking no lightly. "Tell them to wait." "They've been waiting 3 weeks." "Then they can wait longer." Cade's tone left no room for argument. Jin disappeared back into the elevator. Nyla stood in the kitchen, coffee forgotten, watching Cade transform back into the man from the rumors. Untouchable. Unreachable. "I should go," she said. "No." "Cade, if I'm putting you in danger..." "You're not." He turned to face her, and his eyes were burning now. "They are. And they need to understand something very clearly. Which is that you're under my protection, and anyone who touches you dies." The certainty in his voice should have been terrifying. Instead, Nyla felt something else, a dangerous warmth spreading through her chest. "That's insane." "Probably. You barely know me." "I know enough." "Do you?" She moved toward him, anger and fear and something fiercer tangling together. "Because from where I'm standing, you're ready to start a war over a woman you met 2 days ago. That's not protection, Cade. That's obsession." His jaw clenched. "Then leave." "No." "Nyla..." "No." She was close enough now to see the pulse jumping in his throat, to smell the coffee and gunpowder that seemed to cling to him. "You don't get to push me away with one breath and claim me with the next. Pick one." "It's not that simple." "It really is." She grabbed his shirt, pulled him down to eye level. "Do you want me here or not?" Cade stared at her, something wild and desperate flickering behind his carefully constructed walls. Then his hands came up, framing her face, and he kissed her, hard, claiming, absolutely certain. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead against hers. "Stay, please." "Okay." "But if things get dangerous..." "They're already dangerous," Nyla said. "I'm dancing with the devil, remember? Might as well see where the music takes us." "What? 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Nyla stayed at the penthouse. She told herself it was temporary, just until the surveillance teams disappeared, just until Cade figured out who was watching. But temporary started feeling permanent when she found herself memorizing the way morning light hit the windows, when her clothes migrated to his closet, when she stopped flinching every time armed men appeared in the living room for briefings. Cade's world was brutal and efficient. Meetings happened at all hours. Men came and went, dangerous men with cold eyes and concealed weapons. They treated Nyla with careful politeness, the kind reserved for live grenades. She learned to read the room, when to disappear into the bedroom, when her presence was acceptable, when Cade needed her to remind him he was still human. But the surveillance didn't stop. If anything, it intensified. On the fourth morning, Jin brought news that made Cade's expression go absolutely dead. They hit one of our warehouses last night, Gangnam District, burned it to the ground. Nyla watched from the kitchen as Cade absorbed this information without visible reaction. Casualties? 2 guards, both survived, but barely. Jin pulled out his tablet, showed footage of a warehouse engulfed in flames. Professional job, military-grade accelerants. They wanted to send a message. They succeeded. Cade's voice was ice. Who? Still unknown, but boss? Jin glanced at Nyla, then back to Cade. The timing's not coincidental. Meaning? Meaning she shows up and suddenly we're under attack. That's either a hell of a coincidence or... Finish that sentence, Cade said softly, and you'll regret it. Jin held his ground. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. We've been stable for years. No territorial disputes, no challenges. Then she walks into the gala, and within a week we've got surveillance teams and burning warehouses. Nyla set her coffee down carefully. You think I'm a plant? I think the timing is suspicious. Jin, Cade's tone could have cut steel. Stop talking. With respect, boss, someone needs to say it. We don't know her. Don't know who sent her or what her real agenda is. For all we know, I checked her out myself. Cade stepped between Jin and Nyla, a wall of controlled fury. Background, financials, medical records, everything. She's exactly what she appears to be. People lie. Records can be faked. Not to me, they can't. Jin threw his hands up. Then explain the attacks. Explain why... They're testing me, Cade interrupted. Seeing if I've gone soft. If having someone I care about makes me vulnerable. And you standing here accusing her is doing exactly what they want. Creating division. Making me doubt. A heavy silence fell. Nyla could feel her heart hammering against her ribs. This was it. The moment where Cade would realize Jin was right. That she was too much of a risk. That 10 years of careful isolation couldn't be undone by a few nights together. But Cade didn't waver. You work for me, he said to Jin, his voice deadly quiet. Not the other way around. If I say she's clean, she's clean. If I say she stays, she stays. Are we clear? Jin's jaw worked. Crystal. Good. Find out who's behind the attacks. I want names, locations, everything. And Jin? Cade waited until his second-in-command met his eyes. If you question her loyalty again, we're done. Understood? Jin nodded stiffly, then left without another word. Nyla waited until the elevator doors closed before letting out a shaky breath. He's not wrong. Yes, he is. Cade, the timing is irrelevant. He turned to face her, and his expression was almost gentle. They would have come after me eventually. You just gave them an excuse to move faster. So I am a liability. No, you're a target. His hand found hers, squeezed. There's a difference. Not to the people getting burned in warehouses. Those guards knew the risks when they signed up. You didn't. Cade pulled her closer, his other hand cupping her jaw. This is my world, Nyla. Violence and territory and constant power plays. It doesn't stop just because I want it to. Then maybe you should let me go. Can't. Why not? Because... He stopped, something raw flickering across his face. Because I haven't felt this alive in 10 years. Because you look at me like I'm worth saving. Because when you're here, I remember what it's like to be human instead of just a weapon. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. So no, I'm not letting you go. Not unless you want to leave. Nyla searched his eyes, seeing past the crime lord to the man underneath. Lonely, damaged, desperately trying to hold on to something real. "I don't want to leave," she whispered. "Then don't." They stood there in the morning light, holding on to each other while Soul's underworld shifted and calculated around them. Bimhecht. That night, Cade took her to one of his clubs. "Is this a good idea?" Nyla asked as they pulled up to a sleek building in Itaewon, neon bleeding across wet pavement. "No." Cade helped her out of the car, his hand warm and possessive on her lower back. "But hiding you away makes me look weak. Bringing you into the light makes a statement. Which is? That you're mine, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly." The club was exactly what she expected. Expensive, exclusive, full of beautiful people doing ugly things. Music pounded through the floors, light fractured across bodies on the dance floor, and everywhere men and women watched them with calculating eyes. Cade kept Nyla close as they moved through the crowd. Jin and two other guards flanked them, creating a bubble of space. People stepped aside automatically, their gazes sliding away from Cade's face, like looking at him directly might turn them to stone. They ended up in a private booth on the second level, looking down at the chaos below. Cade ordered whiskey for himself, wine for Nyla. Didn't ask her preference, just knew somehow. "You come here often?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "I own it." "Of course you do." A woman approached, stunning, Korean, wearing a dress that cost more than Nyla's rent. She smiled at Cade with the confidence of someone who'd been allowed close before. "Mr. Minseo, it's been too long." Her eyes flicked to Nyla, dismissive. "Who's your friend?" "Not your concern," Cade said flatly. The woman's smile tightened. "I see. Well, if you need anything, we won't." She left, but Nyla could feel the judgment radiating from every corner of the VIP section. Women who'd tried and failed to get Cade's attention. Men who'd never seen him with anyone before. "I'm making you look weak," Nyla said quietly. "You're making me look human." Cade's hand found her knee under the table, squeezed. "There's a difference. Your people don't agree. My people don't get a vote." Below them, the music shifted, something slower, heavier. Bodies moved like a single organism, lost in rhythm and chemical highs. Nyla watched them, feeling the bass vibrate through her bones, missing the simplicity of just dancing, of moving without thinking, without consequences. "Dance with me," she said suddenly. Cade looked at her like she'd suggested they set the building on fire. "Here? Why not? You did it at the gala." "That was different." "How?" "That was—" He stopped himself. "Private. Controlled. This is your club. Your rules." Nyla stood, held out her hand. "Dance with me, Cade. Show them you're not afraid." For a moment she thought he'd refuse, thought the Ghost King would reassert himself, that walls would slam back into place. Then he took her hand. They moved down to the dance floor, Jin's protests fading behind them. The crowd parted automatically, creating space. Cade pulled Nyla close, closer than was appropriate, possessive and claiming. They moved together, her body fitting against his like they'd done this 1,000 times. "Everyone's watching," she murmured against his ear. "Let them. Jin's going to have a stroke. Jin can handle it." Cade's hand splayed across her lower back, holding her tight. "Besides, this was your idea. I'm full of bad ideas lately. I've noticed." They moved together in the half-dark, surrounded by strangers and enemies, and people who would sell them out for the right price. But in that moment, Nyla felt safe, protected, like nothing could touch them while they were together. She should have known better. The gunshot came from nowhere, a sharp crack that cut through the music like a blade. The bass dropped. Someone screamed. Cade moved faster than thought, spinning Nyla around, his body between her and the threat. She felt his weight knock her down, felt the floor slam into her back, felt his arm wrap around her head, protecting. More shots, glass shattering, people stampeding for exits. "Stay down," Cade growled in her ear. Then he was moving, pulling a gun from somewhere, when had he been armed, returning fire with brutal efficiency. Nyla pressed herself flat against the sticky floor, her heart trying to hammer its way out of her chest. She could hear Jin shouting orders, could hear the wet thud of bullets hitting flesh, could smell gunpowder and spilled alcohol in fear. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. Felt like hours. Then silence. Broken only by whimpering and the dull thud of bass still pounding from speakers no one had thought to turn off. Cade hauled her up, his hands running over her body, checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" No, I'm... Nyla couldn't finish. Her whole body was shaking. "Jin!" Cade snapped. "Report!" 2 shooters, both down. 3 civilians hit, non-fatal. We're clear. Jin appeared from the shadows. Blood splattered across his shirt. Not his blood. "Boss, we need to move. Now." Cade nodded, already pulling Nyla toward the back exit. She stumbled, her legs not quite working right. He caught her, lifted her like she weighed nothing, carried her. The car was waiting in the alley. Cade shoved her into the back seat, climbed in after her. Jin took the front, barking orders into his phone. The driver peeled out, tires screaming. Nyla sat in the leather seat, staring at her hands. They were shaking violently. She couldn't make them stop. "Breathe," Cade said, his voice cutting through the panic. "Nyla, look at me." She did. His eyes were calm, focused, like he'd done this 1,000 times before, because he had. "I need you to breathe," he said. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. Can you do that?" She tried. Failed. Tried again. Gradually, her lungs started working properly. "Good. That's good." Cade kept one hand on her shoulder, grounding. "You're okay. You're safe. Someone just tried to kill us. Someone tried to kill me. You were collateral." "That's not better?" Her voice came out too loud, too sharp. "That's so much worse." Cade didn't argue, just kept his hand on her shoulder, steady and warm and absolutely certain. Jin turned around from the front seat. They were professionals, high-end weapons, coordinated timing. This wasn't some random hit. "Busan?" Cade asked. "Has to be. No one else has the resources." Jin's expression was grim. "Boss, they're escalating. First the warehouse, now a public hit. They're not playing games anymore." "Neither am I." Cade's voice went cold, empty. "Send a message. I want a meeting. Tomorrow. Neutral ground." "They might not agree." "They will. Because the alternative is I burn Busan to the ground and salt the earth." Jin nodded, started making calls. Cade pulled Nyla closer, his arm around her shoulders. She wanted to pull away to process what had just happened, but her body wasn't listening. She just leaned into him, shaking. "This is my fault," she whispered. "No." Jin was right. "I'm a liability. I'm getting people killed. 3 people got shot tonight because someone decided to challenge me," Cade said, his voice hard. "That's not on you. That's on them. And they're going to learn exactly what happens when you come at me." Nyla looked up at him, seeing the cold fury in his eyes. This was the monster everyone feared. The man who'd killed his fiance's murderers with his bare hands. The Ghost King. And he was about to go to war. Because of her. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Cade's expression went absolutely dead. "Whatever I have to." Fuck. The meeting happened in a warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul. Neutral ground, as promised. Cade brought Jin and 4 other men, all armed. The Busan delegation brought 6. Nyla watched from the car, parked 50 yards away. Cade had forbidden her from coming closer. "Stay here," he'd ordered. "If shooting starts, you run. Understand?" She'd nodded, not trusting her voice. Now she sat in the back seat, hands clenched together, watching through tinted windows as Cade faced down the man who was trying to kill him. Park Jae-sung was older, 50s maybe, with gray streaking through his hair and the kind of face that looked friendly until you saw his eyes. He smiled as Cade approached, like they were old friends. "Cade, thank you for agreeing to meet. Cut the bullshit." Cade's voice carried across the empty space. "You hit my warehouse. You shot up my club. You want a war? Say it to my face." Park's smile widened. "Not a war. A renegotiation." "Of what?" "Territory, routes, the balance of power." Park spread his hands. "You've controlled Seoul for 10 years, Cade, very successfully. But times change, markets shift, and you've been distracted lately." "Because I went to a gala? Because you fell in love?" Park's eyes glittered with something ugly. "The great Cade Min-seo, brought down by a dancer. It's almost poetic." Cade didn't react. "What do you want?" 40% of your Seoul operations. the Gangnam territories, and guaranteed passage for our shipments through Incheon. Park's smile never wavered. In exchange, we leave you and your pretty American girl alone. No. Then we kill her. Said so casually, like he was discussing the weather. Simple as that. You can go back to being untouchable, and we'll take what we want anyway. Nyla's breath caught in her throat. Through the windshield, she saw Cade go absolutely still, the kind of stillness that came right before violence. You're making a mistake, Cade said quietly. Am I? Park took a step closer. Because from where I'm standing, you've already made yours. You let someone matter, and now she's a target. Every rival you've ever had is watching, Cade, waiting to see if you've gone soft. And what do you think? I think... Park's hand moved toward his jacket. Cade was faster. The gunshot cracked across the warehouse. Park went down, blood spreading across his chest. His men reached for weapons. Jin and Cade's guards opened fire. It was over in seconds. Bodies on concrete, gun smoke hanging in the air. Cade stood in the center of it all, his weapon still raised, his expression absolutely empty. Then he walked back to the car. Nyla's hands were shaking as she unlocked the door. Cade slid into the back seat, blood splattered across his shirt and face. Not his blood. Drive, he told the driver. They pulled away, leaving the bodies behind. Someone else would clean it up. Someone else would handle the police. That's what power bought you. Nyla stared at Cade, at the blood, at the absolute calm on his face. You killed him, she said. Yes. Just like that. Just like that. Cade looked at her, and his eyes were the eyes of a stranger. He threatened you. He dies. That's how this works. Cade, no. He cut her off, his voice hard. Don't try to tell me there was another way. Don't try to make this into something noble. I killed him because he was going to take you from me. And I'll kill anyone else who tries. Do you understand? Nyla swallowed hard. Yes. Good. He turned away, staring out the window at souls streaming past. Because this is what I am. This is what loving me means, blood and violence and bodies in warehouses. If you can't handle that, I can handle it. He looked at her sharply. Can you? I don't know, she admitted, but I'm still here. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, or pain. You shouldn't be. Probably not. Nyla reached across the seat, found his hand. It was still warm from the gun. She laced her fingers through his anyway. But I am. Cade stared at their joined hands like he couldn't quite believe they were real. Then he pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, and held on like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. They rode back to the penthouse in silence, blood and all. The retaliation came fast. Within 24 hours, the Busan organization struck back, hitting 3 of Cade's operations simultaneously. A gambling den in Hongdae, a shipping container at the port, a restaurant that laundered money through its books. 2 more of Cade's men died. Nyla watched him handle it all with cold efficiency. Orders given, resources deployed, retribution calculated. He didn't sleep, barely ate. The humanity she'd glimpsed was buried again under the weight of empire. You need to rest, she told him on the 3rd night, finding him in his office at 2 a.m., surrounded by surveillance footage and financial reports. I'm fine. You're running yourself into the ground. Then I'm running. He didn't look up from his screens. Go to bed, Nyla. Not without you. Nyla. Cade. She moved around the desk, positioned herself between him and the monitors. You can't win a war if you're dead on your feet. I'm not going to lose. I didn't say you would. She took the tablet from his hand, set it aside despite his protest. But you're not a machine. You need sleep. You need food. You need... You? His hands came up, gripping her hips, pulling her closer. Is that what I need? Maybe. He looked up at her, and for a moment the Ghost King disappeared. Just a man, exhausted, desperate, barely holding on. I can't stop, he said quietly. If I stop, if I show weakness, they'll take everything, including you. Then don't stop, but take 5 hours to sleep first. Nyla ran her fingers through his hair, felt him lean into the touch.
The war will still be there in the morning. You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to trust yourself. She tugged gently, pulling him to his feet. Come on, bed, now.
Cade let her lead him to the bedroom, let her push him down onto the mattress, let her curl up beside him in the dark. She thought he'd argue more, thought he'd get back up the second she fell asleep. But he didn't. He wrapped his arms around her and held on tight, his face pressed against her shoulder, his breathing gradually evening out. Don't leave, he mumbled, already half asleep. I won't. Promise. I promise. He was asleep within minutes. Nyla lay awake beside him, listening to his breathing, feeling the weight of his trust pressing down on her chest. She'd promised not to leave, but she hadn't promised to stay safe. The idea came to her in the gray hours before dawn. Cade was fighting a war on multiple fronts, trying to protect his empire while protecting her. But what if she wasn't something that needed protecting? What if she could be part of the solution instead of the problem? Nyla slipped out of bed carefully, not waking him, found her phone in the living room, scrolled through contacts until she found the number Sunmi had given her weeks ago. Marcus answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. Nyla, it's 5 a.m. I need your help. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine. She paused. I'm with someone important, and he's in trouble. What kind of trouble? The kind that involves people shooting at us. Nyla heard Marcus suck in a sharp breath. Before you panic, I'm safe, but I need information about organized crime networks in Busan, about power structures and territory disputes, and… Nyla, what the hell have you gotten yourself into? Something bigger than dancing. She moved to the windows, looked out at Seoul waking up. Marcus, I know this sounds insane, but I need you to trust me. Can you get information? You're a computer science major. You know how to dig through databases. You want me to hack into criminal organizations. I want you to help me understand what we're up against. Silence on the other end. Then, who is he? This guy you're with. Someone who paid for Mom's cancer treatment. Someone who's trying to protect me. Someone… Her voice caught. Someone I think I'm falling for. Jesus, Nyla. I know. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Okay, send me what you know. I'll see what I can find. Thank you. But Nyla? His voice went serious. If this guy gets you killed, I'm going to find a way to kill him too. Fair enough. She hung up, started compiling everything she knew about the Busan organization. Names, locations, patterns. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Behind her, Cade's voice cut through the silence like a knife. What are you doing? Nyla spun around. He stood in the bedroom doorway wearing only sleep pants, his expression unreadable. I'm trying to help, she said. By doing what, exactly? Research, information gathering. She held up her phone. My brother's good with computers. He can… No. Cade crossed the room in 3 strides, took the phone from her hand. Absolutely not. Cade, you don't involve your family in this. You don't pull civilians into a war zone. His voice was hard, final. I won't allow it. You won't allow it? Anger flared in Nyla's chest. I'm not asking permission. Then you're making a mistake. Like the mistake of caring about you? Of trying to help instead of just being something you need to protect? Cade's jaw clenched. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Nyla grabbed the phone back. You think I don't know what I've walked into? You think I don't understand the danger? I watched you kill a man 3 days ago, Cade. I've been shot at. I've had armed guards follow me to the bathroom. I know exactly how insane this is. Then why are you still here? Because I choose to be! She was shouting now, all the fear and frustration of the past week boiling over. Because you looked at me like I was the first real thing you'd seen in years. Because when you hold me, I feel safe even though I know I shouldn't. Because… Her voice broke. Because I think I love you, and that terrifies me more than all the guns and blood and violence combined. The words hung between them, impossible to take back. Cade stared at her like she'd just detonated a bomb in the middle of his living room. You don't, he said finally. You can't. Why not? Because people who love me die, Nyla, horribly, and I can't. His voice went rough. I can't watch that happen again. Then let me help you fight. Nyla stepped closer, reaching for him. Stop treating me like something fragile that needs to be locked away. I'm stronger than you think.
I know how strong you are.
Cade caught her hands, held them tight. That's not the point. Then what is? The point is... He stopped, his grip tightening. The point is, I've already lost everyone I've ever cared about. And if I lose you too, there won't be anything left. Nothing worth saving. Nyla felt tears burning at the edges of her eyes. You won't lose me. You can't promise that. Neither can you. But we're here anyway. They stood in the gray morning light, holding on to each other while the world tried to tear them apart. Then Cade's phone buzzed. A text from Jin. Boss, we have a situation. The Busan organization just took one of our shipments, and they're broadcasting it. Cade pulled up the video on his phone. Nyla watched over his shoulder. A warehouse somewhere in the city. Cade's men on their knees, hands zip-tied. And standing behind them, a woman Nyla didn't recognize, young, beautiful, holding a gun.
Hello, Cade, the woman said to the camera,
her smile cold. Remember me? Park Ji-won, Park Jae-sung's daughter. You killed my father. Now I'm going to take everything you love. The video cut to Nyla, surveillance footage from the club, from the gala, from her walking into Cade's building. Her face, her name, her entire life exposed. Starting with her, Ji-won continued, you have 72 hours to surrender your sole operations. If you don't, she aimed the gun at one of Cade's kneeling men, fired. He dropped. Well, you get the idea. The video ended. Cade stood absolutely still, his expression going cold and empty and absolutely terrifying. Get Jin, he said, his voice dead calm. Get everyone, and find out where they're holding my people. Cade, now, Nyla. She ran. Within an hour, the penthouse was full of armed men planning a war. Maps spread across tables. Weapons checked and loaded. Cade at the center of it all, a general commanding his army. Nyla stood in the corner, watching, understanding with absolute clarity what was about to happen. Cade was going to burn Busan to the ground, and there was no going back from this. This was the point of no return. The moment where loving him stopped being a choice and became a war. Where staying meant accepting the blood on his hands, where leaving meant abandoning him to the darkness. Jin appeared beside her, his expression grim. You should go. While you still can. I'm not leaving. Miss Vance, I said I'm not leaving. She met his eyes, unflinching. He needs me. What he needs is for you to be safe. Then help him win. Nyla turned back to watch Cade, saw him issuing orders with brutal efficiency. Help him end this, because if he loses, he won't lose. Jin's voice was absolutely certain. But a lot of people are going to die. And once it starts, there's no stopping it. I know. And you're staying anyway. Yes.
Jin studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded, something like respect flickering across his face. Then stay out of the way. And if shooting starts, you hit the ground and don't move until someone tells you it's safe. Understood. Across the room, Cade looked up, found her eyes. Something passed between them, acknowledgement, acceptance, the understanding that they were about to step into something neither of them could survive unchanged. Nyla nodded once. Cade turned back to his maps. And the war began. The war room smelled like gun oil and testosterone. Cade stood at the head of the table, his finger tracing routes on a map of Seoul's industrial district. 20 men surrounded him, enforcers, soldiers, killers, all waiting for orders, all ready to bleed. They're holding our people here. Cade tapped a warehouse near the port. 3 entry points. Cameras on the north and east sides. Guard rotation every 4 hours. Jin leaned forward. Intel says they've got at least 15 men inside, maybe more. Then we bring 30. Cade's voice was flat, emotionless. The Ghost King in full control. Split into 3 teams. Jin, you take the north entrance. Choi, you're on the east. I'll go through the south with the rest. Boss? One of the younger soldiers spoke up, nervous. What about civilians? The port's active during... We go at 3 a.m. Minimal foot traffic. Cade didn't look up from his maps. Anyone who sees something they shouldn't,
You make sure they forget. Understood? Nods all around. No questions about what make sure they forget meant. They all knew. Nyla watched from the corner, her arms wrapped around herself. This was really happening. Cade was planning an assault like he was planning a business meeting. Clinical, efficient, utterly devoid of mercy. What about Park Ji-won? Jen asked. She's the one calling shots now. If we take out her men but leave her alive. We won't leave her alive. Cade's tone could have frozen blood. She put a gun to my people's heads. She threatened Nyla. She dies. No negotiation. Agreed. But boss, she's got connections. Her father built an empire before you put him down. Taking her out is going to have consequences. Let it. Cade finally looked up, his eyes scanning the room. I want everyone to understand something. This isn't about territory anymore. This isn't about profits or roots or power. They made this personal. They came after what's mine. So we're going to show them exactly what happens when you cross that line. The men shifted, energy coiling tighter. This was the Cade Minseo from the stories. The man who'd tortured his fiancée's killers for 3 days straight. The ghost king who'd built an empire on the bones of everyone who'd ever challenged him. We move in 6 hours, Cade continued. Get your gear, check your weapons. And remember, no mercy, no witnesses, no mistakes. Any questions? Silence. Good. Dismissed. The room emptied quickly, soldiers filing out to prepare. Jin lingered, his expression troubled. Boss, are you sure about this? Going in yourself? Yes. With respect, you're the head of this organization. If something happens to you, it won't. But if it does, everything falls apart. Let me lead the assault. You stay here, coordinate from... No. Cade's voice cut like a blade. They took my people. Threatened my... He stopped, jaw clenching. I'm going. End of discussion. Jin looked like he wanted to argue more, then glanced at Nyla. Something passed across his face. Understanding, maybe. Resignation. Understood. I'll make sure the teams are ready. He left. Cade and Nyla stood alone in the war room, surrounded by maps and weapons and the machinery of violence. You can't do this, Nyla said quietly. Watch me. Cade, this is insane. You're talking about killing people, a lot of people. They started it. That doesn't make it right, right? Cade turned to face her, and his expression was absolutely cold. You think any of this is about right and wrong? This is survival. This is sending a message so clear that no one ever tries this again. It's murder. It's war. He moved toward her, his presence overwhelming. And war doesn't care about morality. It cares about who's standing at the end. Nyla held her ground. What happened to the man who danced with me? Who held me like I was the only real thing in his world? He's still here. Cade's hand came up, fingers brushing her jaw. But so is the monster. They're not separate, Nyla. They never were. You want me? You get both. I know. Her voice broke slightly. But I'm asking you, begging you, don't do this. There has to be another way. There isn't. How do you know if you won't even look? Because I've been doing this for 10 years. His voice rose, frustration cracking through the ice. You think this is my first war? My first retaliation? I know how this works. You hit back harder than they hit you. You make an example so brutal that everyone else thinks twice. That's how you survive. Or you could walk away. Cade stared at her like she'd just suggested he cut off his own arm. Walk away. Yes. Take me, take your people, and just leave. Start over somewhere else, somewhere they can't find us. They'd find us. Maybe. But at least you'd have tried something other than more blood. I can't. The words came out rough, almost pained. Don't you understand? If I walk away now, I lose everything. The empire collapses. Everyone who works for me becomes a target. And you... His grip tightened fractionally on her jaw. You'd never be safe. They'd hunt us forever. Then we fight smart instead of hard. Nyla covered his hand with hers. Use your connections, your resources. Find leverage that doesn't involve bullets. There is no leverage. Not anymore. They drew the line. Now I have to cross it. She could see it in his eyes. The absolute certainty. The cold calculation. He'd already decided. This conversation was just a formality. Fine. Nyla stepped back, breaking contact. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. The hell I don't. Cade's expression went hard. You stay here, where it's safe. Safe? She laughed, sharp and bitter. Your penthouse is a fortress, Cade, but it's not safe. Nothing about this life is safe. So if you're going to war, I'm going with you. At least then I know what's happening. No. You can't stop me. Yes, I can. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. Jin's posting guards outside this door. You leave. They stop you. Try to fight. They restrain you. I'm not losing you because you're too stubborn to stay put. Anger flared hot in Nyla's chest. You're locking me up? I'm protecting you. By treating me like a prisoner? By making sure you're alive when this is over, Cade was shouting now, control slipping. You want to help? You want to do something useful? Then stay here and don't make me worry about you getting shot while I'm trying to save my people. The words hung between them, raw and desperate. Nyla stared at him, seeing past the anger to the fear underneath. He was terrified. Not of the fight, he'd done that 1,000 times. Terrified of her dying, of losing someone he cared about. Again. Okay, she said softly. Cade blinked. What? Okay, I'll stay. She moved closer, reached up to cup his face. But you promised me something. Anything. You come back. Whatever happens down there, you come back to me. His eyes closed, his forehead pressing against hers. I promise. Swear it. I swear. His arms wrapped around her, holding tight. I'll come back. They stood like that for a long moment, two people holding on to each other while the clock counted down to violence. Then Cade's phone buzzed. Time to move. He kissed her, hard, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. Then he pulled away, his expression shuddering back into the cold mask of the Ghost King. Stay inside. Don't answer the door for anyone but Jin or me. If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. If something goes wrong, he repeated firmly, there's a safe in the bedroom closet. Code is 0815. Inside is cash, passports, and a gun. Take it all and run. Don't look back. Nyla's throat tightened. Cade, promise me. I promise. He nodded once, then turned and walked out. Nyla stood in the empty war room, listening to his footsteps fade, listening to orders being barked in the hallway, listening to the sound of guns being loaded and vests being strapped on. The door closed, locked from the outside. She was alone. 3 hours passed like centuries. Nyla paced the penthouse, unable to sit still. The guards outside the door were silent, but she could feel their presence, watching, making sure she didn't do anything stupid. She tried to distract herself. Turned on the TV, news coverage of a fire in Gangnam. No details yet. Turned it off. Tried to read. Couldn't focus on the words. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Found something on the Busan organization. Call me when you can. Nyla stared at the message. She'd forgotten she'd asked him to dig. That felt like a lifetime ago. She called. Marcus picked up immediately. Nyla, Jesus, I've been trying to reach you for hours. Where have you been? Locked in a penthouse while the man I'm falling for goes to war with a crime family. The words came out flat, emotionless. What did you find? Are you serious right now? Marcus, what did you find? He was quiet for a moment, then, okay. So I did some digging into the Busan power structure, specifically Park Jae-sung's family. And Nyla, there's something weird. Define weird. Park Ji-won, the daughter who's supposedly running things now, she doesn't exist. Nyla went still. What do you mean she doesn't exist? I mean, there's no record of her before 3 years ago. No birth certificate, no school records, no digital footprint. She just appeared in 2023, already embedded in the organization. Marcus's voice went tense. Either she's operating under a completely fabricated identity, or she's not who she says she is. Exactly. And get this. I found financial records linking her to an account in Singapore. Traced it back to a shell company that's been moving money for the past decade. Guess who one of the major investors is? Nyla's stomach dropped. Who? Someone close to Cade. Someone in his inner circle. Marcus, I need a name. I'm still working on it. The encryption is serious, and I'm not exactly a professional hacker. But Nyla, whoever this person is, they've been planning this for a long time. The warehouse hit, the club shooting, all of it. It's too coordinated to be random retaliation. You think someone set Cade up? I think someone's been setting him up for years. And Jiwon is just the latest piece. Nyla's mind raced. If Marcus was right, if this wasn't about territory or revenge, but something deeper.
I have to tell him, she said.
Tell who? Your crime lord boyfriend? Marcus, Nyla, listen to me. If I'm right about this, if someone in Cade's organization is behind it, then telling him could get you killed. You need to get out. Now, before… The line went dead. Nyla pulled the phone away from her ear, staring at it. Call dropped. She tried to dial back. Nothing. Then the lights went out. The entire penthouse plunged into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in after a few seconds. Dim, red-tinged, turning everything into a horror movie. Nyla's heart hammered against her ribs. Outside the door, she heard movement. Footsteps. Voices. Then gunshots. She dove behind the couch, her hands shaking. More shots. A body hit the floor. Someone screamed, cut off abruptly. Silence. The door to the penthouse beeped, someone entering the code. It swung open. Nyla pressed herself flat against the floor, holding her breath. Footsteps moved through the living room, slow, deliberate, searching. Come out, Miss Vance? A woman's voice. Familiar. I know you're here. Nyla's blood went cold. Park Jiwon. Your boyfriend is walking into a trap right now. Jiwon continued, her footsteps moving closer. And there's nothing you can do to warn him. So why don't we have a conversation while we wait for the news? Nyla stayed frozen. The bedroom was 30 feet away. If she could get to the safe, get the gun. I can hear you breathing, Jiwon said, amused. Behind the couch. Really? Nyla bolted. She made it 10 feet before someone grabbed her from behind, slamming her into the wall. Pain exploded across her shoulder. Hands yanked her around, and she came face to face with Park Ji-won. Up close, she was younger than Nyla had thought. Late 20s, beautiful in a cold way, with eyes that held absolutely no warmth. There you are, Ji-won smiled. We have so much to talk about. Two men flanked her, professionals armed, their expressions blank. One of them zip-tied Nyla's hands behind her back while the other kept a gun trained on her head. Sit, Ji-won ordered, gesturing to the couch. Nyla sat. She didn't have a choice. Ji-won settled into the chair across from her, crossing her legs elegantly. Do you know why I'm here, Miss Vance? To kill me. Eventually. But first, I want you to understand something. She pulled out her phone, typed quickly. Your boyfriend, Cade Minseo, the Great Ghost King, is currently breaking into a warehouse that we evacuated 6 hours ago. There's no one there, no hostages, no fight, just a very large amount of explosives on a timer. Nyla's breath stopped. You're lying. Am I? Ji-won turned the phone around. Live video feed. Cade and his men moving through a dark warehouse, weapons raised. Searching, finding nothing. He has about 4 minutes before the whole building goes up, Ji-won said conversationally. And his phones are jammed, so you can't warn him. Isn't that tragic? Why? Nyla's voice came out strangled. Why are you doing this? Because he killed my father. Your father tried to kill him first. True, but irrelevant. Ji-won leaned forward. You see, Miss Vance, this isn't about territory or drugs or any of the usual nonsense. This is about something much simpler. Revenge. My father spent 20 years building his empire, and Cade Minseo destroyed it in a single night 10 years ago. Nyla's mind went blank. 10 years ago, but I thought, you thought my father was Park Jae-sung, the man Cade killed last week. Ji-won's smile widened. Common mistake. Jae-sung was my uncle. My father was Park Hyun-woo. Perhaps you've heard of him? The name hit like a freight train. Park Hyun-woo. The man who'd ordered Soo-hyun's murder. The man Cade had tortured for 3 days before finally killing him. Oh, I see you have heard of him, Ji-won said, watching Nyla's face. Good. Then you understand this is personal. Cade took my father from me. Made me watch, actually. I was 17, hiding in the corner while he did unspeakable things. And I swore that one day
I'd make him feel exactly what I felt. You've been planning this for 10 years. Longer, actually. It took time to build the resources to create this identity, to get close enough to his organization. Ji-won glanced at her phone. 3 minutes. You should watch. I want you to see the moment he realizes what's happening. On the screen, Cade had stopped moving. He was looking around, his expression shifting from alert to suspicious. He knows, Ji-won said, delighted. He can feel it, the trap closing. Nyla watched Cade grab his phone, try to make a call. Nothing. He started shouting orders. She couldn't hear the audio, but she could see his men scrambling for the exits. 2 minutes. Please, Nyla whispered. Please don't do this. Begging. How original. Ji-won stood, moved to the window. But you're wasting your breath. He's already dead. The question is, what happens to you after? You said you'd kill me, I said eventually. But first, Ji-won turned back to her, and her smile was absolutely terrifying. First, I want you to understand something. Cade Minseo loved 2 women in his entire life, Soo-hyun and you. I can't touch Soo-hyun anymore. But you? She moved closer, crouched down to eye level. You get to live with the knowledge that loving him got him killed, just like Soo-hyun did. 1 minute. Nyla stared at the screen, watching Cade run toward the exit, his men ahead of him. So close. They were so close. He won't make it, Ji-won said softly. The blast radius is too large, but it's nice that he's trying, don't you think? 30 seconds. Nyla felt tears streaming down her face. She couldn't look away, couldn't close her eyes. Cade hit the exit door, sunlight streaming in. He was almost outside, almost safe. 20 seconds. Then he stopped, turned around, ran back inside. No, Nyla breathed. No, what are you doing? On screen, Cade grabbed one of his men who'd fallen, dragged him toward the exit. The man was bigger than him, dead weight. Cade didn't care, just pulled harder. 10 seconds. Idiot, Ji-won muttered. Heroic idiot. 5 seconds. Cade was still inside, still dragging his man. 3 feet from the door. 3 seconds. He shoved the man through the exit. 2 seconds. Turned to run. 1. The screen went white. Then nothing. The explosion was distant but audible. A deep rolling boom that rattled the penthouse windows. Nyla watched smoke mushroom into the sky from somewhere across the city. The video feed went black. Well, Ji-won said into the silence. That's that. Nyla couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she'd just watched. Cade was dead. The Ghost King was gone, and she was alone with the woman who'd killed him. Now, Ji-won said, straightening, let's talk about what happens next. You see, I could kill you right now, put a bullet in your head and be done with it, but that feels, she tilted her head, considering, anticlimactic. You should suffer, the way I suffered, the way Cade should have suffered if he'd been a little slower. One of her men handed her a phone, different from the one she'd been using. There's someone who wants to speak with you, Ji-won said, holding it out. Nyla stared at it. Who? Someone you know. Someone who made all of this possible. Ji-won's smile was razor sharp. Someone who's been very, very patient. She pressed the phone to Nyla's ear. A man's voice came through, familiar, impossible. Hello, Nyla. Her blood turned to ice. No, she whispered. I'm sorry it had to be this way, Jin said. But you have to understand, this was always the plan. Nyla's world tilted sideways. Jin, Cade's second in command, his most trusted advisor, his friend for 8 years, the traitor. Why? The word came out broken. Because Cade Minseo destroyed everything I built, Jin said, his voice calm, rational. 10 years ago, I was running the Western Territories, had my own operation, my own empire. Then he came along, took it all, forced me to work for him or die. So I worked, and I waited, and I planned. You've been planning this for 10 years. Longer, Park Ji-won and I have been coordinating for 5 years. Everything, the warehouse, the club, the video, all of it, was designed to push Cade exactly where we needed him. Angry, reckless, willing to walk into a trap to save his people. You killed him. Nyla's voice shook with rage. You were his friend. He trusted you. He was a tyrant,
a monster who built his empire on corpses. Jin's tone didn't waver. I freed Soul from him, and now I'm going to take everything he built and make it mine. The other organizations won't let you. They will when they see what I'm capable of. A pause. Ji-won, show her. Ji-won pulled out her phone again, brought up another video. It showed the warehouse from the outside. Cade's men scrambling out of the building seconds before it exploded. Most of them made it, but not all. The explosion swallowed the building whole, smoke and fire. When it cleared, the warehouse was gone, just rubble and flames. We recovered 6 bodies so far, Jin said through the phone. Cade's wasn't one of them, but don't get your hopes up. The fire's still burning. We just haven't found him yet. You bastard! Nyla's voice was pure venom. I will kill you for this, Jin laughed. With what? You're zip-tied and surrounded by professionals. You're not killing anyone, Nyla. You're just a loose end, and Ji-won is very good at tying those up. The line went dead. Ji-won pocketed the phone, her expression almost sympathetic. For what it's worth, I don't enjoy this part. You seem like a decent person. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong man. Go to hell. Probably will eventually. Ji-won nodded to her men. Take her to the safe house. Keep her alive until Jin gives the word. Then make it quick. The men grabbed Nyla, hauled her to her feet. She fought, kicked, screamed, tried to break free. It didn't matter. They were professionals. She was a dancer. They dragged her toward the elevator. The last thing Nyla saw before the doors closed was the view from Cade's penthouse. Soul sprawling beneath them, beautiful and deadly, and utterly indifferent to her pain. Then the doors shut, and everything went dark. The safe house was a basement somewhere in the industrial district. No windows, concrete walls, a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. They chained Nyla to a metal chair bolted to the floor, then left her alone. She didn't know how long she sat there. Hours, maybe. Time lost meaning in the windowless dark. Her mind kept replaying the explosion, kept seeing Cade turn back, kept wondering if those last seconds had hurt or if it had been too fast to feel. She hoped it had been fast. The door opened. One of Ji-won's men entered carrying a tray, water, rice, some kind of soup. He set it on the floor beside her, then unlocked one of her hands. Eat, he said. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. Boss's orders. Nyla stared at the food. The thought of eating made her stomach turn. But she forced herself to pick up the water bottle, take a sip, then another. The man watched, expressionless. When she finished half the bottle, he nodded and started to leave. Wait, Nyla said. He paused. The explosion. How many people died? Why do you care? Because they had families, people who loved them. They deserved to be counted. He was quiet for a moment. Then, 8 confirmed dead, another 12 wounded. Your boyfriend's body still hasn't been found. Because he's not dead. The man's expression didn't change. The building collapsed. Anyone still inside when that happened? He's not dead. Nyla said it like a prayer, like saying it enough times might make it true. He's too stubborn to die. Believe what you want. Won't change anything. The man turned to leave. What's your name? Nyla asked suddenly. He stopped again, looking back at her with something like surprise. Why? Because you're going to kill me eventually. I'd like to know who does it. He studied her for a long moment. Quan. Quan what? Just Quan. He moved toward the door. And for what it's worth, I hope you're right about him being stubborn. Then he was gone. Nyla sat in the silence, her mind racing. If Cade was alive, and she had to believe he was alive because the alternative was unbearable, then he'd be coming for her. He'd made a promise. I'll come back. But even if he survived the blast, he'd be injured, hunted, his organization in chaos. And he didn't know about Jin. That was the worst part. Cade thought Jin was loyal, would go to him for help, for resources, would walk right into another trap, unless she could warn him. Nyla looked around the basement. Concrete walls, metal door, no windows. One chain on her wrist, the other on her ankle. No phone, no weapons, nothing. She was trapped, and somewhere out there Cade was bleeding and broken and trusting the wrong person. Nyla closed her eyes, fought back the despair trying to swallow her whole. She'd promised to help him fight, to be more than just something he had to protect. Time to prove it. She looked at the chain on her wrist. Standard restraints, not designed to hold someone who was genuinely desperate. Nyla took a deep breath, then began working her thumb, pressing, twisting, ignoring the pain as the metal bit into her skin. Dancers learn to dislocate joints, to make their bodies do impossible things. This was just another performance, just significantly more painful. Her thumb popped out of joint with a sound that made her stomach lurch. She bit back a scream, tears streaming down her face. But the chain slipped free. One hand loose. She reached for the ankle restraint, but it was locked differently, needed a key. She couldn't get it off. But she could reach the tray Quan had left. The water bottle was plastic, useless. The bowl was ceramic. Better. Nyla smashed it against the floor. It shattered into sharp pieces. She selected the longest shard, wrapped cloth from her sleeve around the base to protect her grip. Not much of a weapon, but it was something. Now she just had to wait. 3 hours later, or maybe 4, time was impossible to track. The door opened again. Quan stepped inside, alone this time. He stopped when he saw her hand free, saw the makeshift weapon hidden behind her back. "Clever," he said. "I'm full of surprises." "I can see that." He moved closer, cautious now. "What's your plan here? Stab me and hope you can get past the other guards. If I have to. You won't make it 10 feet. Maybe not." Nyla stood as much as the ankle chain allowed, shifting her weight. "But I'll try anyway." Quan studied her, something shifting in his expression. Then he did something that made Nyla's heart stop. He pulled out a key. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Giving you a chance." He unlocked the ankle restraint. "There are 2 guards outside the door, another 3 upstairs. If you can get past them, there's a car 2 blocks north. Keys are in the ignition." "Why would you help me?" "Because I worked for Cade for 3 years before Jin recruited me. And in that time, your boyfriend showed me more loyalty than Jin ever has." Quan stepped back. "I don't know if he's alive, but if he is, he's going to need help, and you're the only person he'd trust right now." "Jin will kill you for this." "Probably, but I'd rather die on the right side than live on the wrong one." He gestured to the door. "Move fast. You've got maybe 5 minutes before they realize something's wrong." Nyla stared at him, then grabbed his arm. "Come with me." "Can't. Someone needs to buy you time." He pulled away gently. "Go. Now." She ran. The hallway was dark, narrow. She could hear voices ahead. The guards Quan had mentioned. 2 men playing cards at a table, their weapons leaning against the wall. Nyla took a breath, then charged. She hit the first guard from behind, driving the ceramic shard into his shoulder. He screamed, went down. The second guard lunged for his gun. Nyla was faster. She grabbed the fallen guard's weapon, fired twice. The second guard dropped. Behind her, Quan shouted, "Runner! We have a runner!" Buying her time, like he'd promised. Nyla sprinted for the stairs, took them 3 at a time, burst into the ground floor, an abandoned warehouse, exactly like the one Cade had raided. 3 more guards, just like Quan said. They turned at the sound of gunfire below, reaching for weapons. Nyla didn't hesitate. Didn't think. Just moved. Years of dance training translated into something else now. Fluid movement, perfect balance, controlled violence. She fired as she ran, dropped 2 guards before they could return fire. The third got a shot off. It went wide, punching through a window behind her. She put 2 bullets in his chest. Then she was outside, running into Seoul's morning light, 2 blocks north. The car. She ran, her lungs burning, expecting bullets in her back at any second, but none came. The car was where Quan said it would be. A beat-up sedan, keys in the ignition. Nyla threw herself into the driver's seat, started the engine, and peeled out into traffic. She'd made it. She was free. Now she just had to find Cade, assuming he was still alive, assuming Jin hadn't already found him, assuming anything about this nightmare could still be fixed. Nyla drove through Seoul's morning rush, her hands shaking on the wheel, Quan's gun on the passenger seat, and absolutely no idea where to go. But she was moving, and movement was better than death. For now. She ended up at the hospital. It was a gamble. If Cade had survived, he'd need medical attention, and there were only so many hospitals in Seoul that would treat a gunshot victim with no questions asked. Nyla parked 3 blocks away, tucked the gun into her waistband, and walked into Seoul National University Hospital through the emergency entrance. The nurse at the desk looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for someone. Male, Korean, early 30s, would have come in this morning. Injuries from an explosion, maybe burns, maybe—" Her voice cracked. "Please, I need to know if he's here." The nurse's expression softened. "I can't give out patient information without—" "Please." Nyla leaned forward, desperation bleeding through. "Please. His name is Cade Minseo. Or he might be using a different name, but he was in an explosion this morning, and I need to know if he's alive." The nurse hesitated, then she typed something into her computer, her expression carefully neutral. "We did have several patients come in from an industrial accident this morning," she said slowly, "but I can't confirm names without proper identification." "I understand, but—" "However," the nurse met her eyes, "there's a patient in the ICU, critical condition, no identification, brought in by paramedics about 6 hours ago." She wrote something on a piece of paper, slid it across the desk. "3rd floor, room 347, but I never told you that." Nyla grabbed the paper. "Thank you." She ran. 3rd floor, room 347. The ICU was quieter than the rest of the hospital, hushed, tense, full of people clinging to hope. She found the room. The door was closed. A doctor was inside, checking monitors. Nyla pushed the door open. The doctor looked up, startled. "Miss, you can't be in here." Then Nyla saw the man in the bed, and her heart stopped. It was Cade, alive, barely. Burns covered his left side. His face was swollen, bruised almost beyond recognition. Bandages wrapped around his chest. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking a heartbeat that was too slow, too weak. But he was breathing. "Oh my God," Nyla whispered. The doctor moved between her and the bed. "Miss, I need you to leave. This patient is in critical condition, and I'm his emergency contact," Nyla lied. "I'm family." He had no identification. We don't know who he is. His name is Cade Minseo. He's Korean-American, 32 years old, allergic to penicillin. Has a scar on his right shoulder from a knife wound when he was 19. She rattled off everything she knew, everything Cade had told her in their late-night conversations. "And I'm the person he'd want here if he wakes up." The doctor studied her, calculating, then nodded. 5 minutes? Then you need to speak with administration about his care." "Thank you." The doctor left. Nyla moved to Cade's bedside, her hand finding his. His skin was too hot, too dry. Fever, maybe. Infection. "Hey," she whispered. "It's me. I'm here." No response, just the steady beep of monitors. "You have to wake up," she continued, tears streaming down her face. "You have to wake up because Jin betrayed you. He's the one behind everything. The attacks, the explosion, all of it. And if you don't wake up, he's going to take everything." Nothing. "Please, Cade, please." She leaned down, pressed her forehead against his hand. "You promised you'd come back, so come back, fight, like you always do." The monitors beeped. Cade's fingers moved, barely, just a twitch. But movement. Nyla's head snapped up. "Cade?" His eyes cracked open, just slits, unfocused, but open. "Nyla." Her name came out as a rasp, barely audible. "I'm here. I'm right here. You—" He coughed, pain flickering across his face. "You're safe. For now. But Cade, Jin, I know." His eyes closed again, exhaustion pulling him under. "Figured it out. When the building—" He trailed off. "Don't talk. Save your strength." "No, listen." His grip tightened fractionally on her hand. "Jin, he'll come for you, for me. Have to—" Another cough, this one worse. Blood flecked his lips. "Cade, stop. You're hurt. You need to rest." "Can't rest. Have to—" His eyes opened again, burning with desperate intensity. "Have to end this. Have to—" The monitor started beeping faster. Erratic. The doctor rushed back in. "Miss, you need to leave. Now. No, now." Nurses flooded the room. Someone grabbed Nyla, pulled her back. She watched them work on Cade. Watched his body convulse. Watched the monitors scream. Then someone pushed her out into the hallway. The door slammed shut.
and Nyla stood there, shaking, covered in Cade's blood and her own terror, while the man she loved died on the other side of the wall.
The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Nyla sat with her head in her hands, still wearing yesterday's clothes, still covered in blood that wasn't hers. 2 hours since they'd rushed Cade into emergency surgery. 2 hours of nothing but the tick of the wall clock and the quiet sobbing of other people waiting for news about their own dying loved ones. She should run, should disappear before Jin figured out where she was, before Park Ji-won sent more men. But she couldn't move, couldn't leave him. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Miss Vance? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. My name is Agent Sarah Chen. I'm with the FBI's Seoul office. We need to talk. Nyla's blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you do. We've had Cade Minseo under surveillance for 6 months. We know about the Busan conflict. We know about the warehouse explosion. And we know you were at his penthouse when Park Ji-won's team hit it. A pause. We also know you just shot 3 of her men and escaped from a safe house in Yongsan. I want a lawyer. You're not under arrest. Yet. But we can help each other, Miss Vance. You help us bring down Jin Soo-hyun and what's left of Minseo's organization. We make sure you don't spend the next 20 years in a Korean prison for murder. I was defending myself.
I believe you. But the Korean National Police might not be as sympathetic, especially when they find out you've been living with Seoul's biggest crime lord. Agent Chen's tone softened slightly. I'm not your enemy, Nyla. But if you want to survive this, you need to make a choice. Right now. Nyla closed her eyes. What do you want from me? Information, locations, names, everything you know about Minseo's operations and Jin's current movements. And if I don't cooperate, then we arrest you the moment you walk out of that hospital, and we let the Korean justice system sort it out. A beat. But if you do cooperate, we can protect you, get you out of Seoul, new identity, new life, your mother and brother too. The offer hung between them. Safety, freedom, everything Nyla had wanted before she'd walked into that gala and asked a ghost to dance. No, she said. Miss Vance, that's me. No. Nyla's voice went hard. You want Jin? Fine. I'll help you get Jin, but I'm not running, and I'm not abandoning Cade. Cade Minseo is a criminal. He's killed people, destroyed lives. He's also the man who paid for my mother's cancer treatment without asking for anything in return, who protected me when I became a target, who walked back into a burning building to save one of his men. Nyla's hand tightened on the phone. So no, I'm not testifying against him, but Jin Soo-hyun, I'll give you everything you need. Silence on the other end. Then, we'll need to meet, somewhere public. I'm at Seoul National University Hospital, ICU waiting room. Stay there, I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. Nyla sat back, her heart hammering. She'd just agreed to work with the FBI, to betray what was left of Cade's organization. But it was the only way to survive, the only way to make sure Jin paid for what he'd done. 15 minutes later, a woman in a dark suit appeared in the waiting room. Mid-40s, Asian American, with sharp eyes that cataloged everything in 3 seconds. Miss Vance? Nyla stood. Agent Chen? Come with me. They walked to a private consultation room. Chen closed the door, pulled out a recording device. Everything you say here is on the record. You understand that? Yes. Good. Start from the beginning. When did you first meet Cade Minseo? Nyla told her everything. The gala, the dance, the money, the growing relationship, the attacks, the explosion, Jin's betrayal. Chen listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When Nyla finished, she sat back. That corroborates what we've been piecing together. Jin Soo-hyun has been making moves in the last 12 hours. Taking over Minseo's legitimate fronts, consolidating power. He's moving fast. Because he thinks Cade's dead. Is he? No. Nyla's voice was absolute. He's in surgery, but he's alive. For now. Miss Vance, even if Minseo survives, he's looking at serious jail time. We have enough evidence to...
Then use it on Jin instead. Nyla leaned forward. You want to take down a criminal organization? Jin's running one right now. He orchestrated an explosion that killed 8 people. He's working with Park Ji-won, who's connected to international trafficking networks. You go after Jin, you can dismantle the entire Busan operation. Chen studied her. And what about Minseo? Let him go. That's not how this works.
Make it work. Nyla held her gaze. You said you need my cooperation. Well, that's my price. Full immunity for Cade. In exchange, I give you Jin. Everything. Where he operates, who he works with, how his money moves. You don't know that information. No, but Cade does. And when he wakes up, he'll tell me. Nyla's jaw set. Do we have a deal or not? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, typed something, waited. A reply came back. My supervisor says we can discuss immunity, but Minseo has to cooperate too. Full disclosure. He testifies against Jin and the Busan organization. We'll consider reducing his charges. Not good enough. It's the best you're going to get. Then I guess we're done here. Nyla stood. Miss Vance, don't be stupid. If you walk away from this deal, then arrest me. But you won't get Jin, and you won't get the Busan network. And in 6 months, someone worse than Cade will fill the power vacuum. Nyla moved toward the door. Your choice, Agent Chen. She made it 3 steps before Chen called out. Wait. Nyla stopped. Full immunity for Minseo. In writing. He testifies, gives us everything on Jin and Park Ji-won, and we make his record disappear. Chen's expression was hard. But if he steps out of line after this, if we catch him so much as jaywalking, the deal's off. Understood? Understood. Good. Now sit down. We have a lot of planning to do. Yicked. Cade woke up 6 hours later. Nyla was at his bedside when his eyes cracked open, when his hand twitched against the sheets. She grabbed his fingers, squeezed. Hey, you're awake. His voice came out as a rasp. How long? 8 hours in surgery, 6 hours unconscious. You coded twice. Tears burned at the edges of her vision. You scared the hell out of me. Sorry. He tried to smile, failed. Jin? Alive, taking over your operations, moving fast. Nyla glanced at the door, then back to Cade. And there's something else. The FBI is here. They want to talk to you. Cade's eyes went sharp despite the pain medication. You called them? They called me. They've been watching you for months. She squeezed his hand tighter. Cade, they're offering a deal. Full immunity if you testify against Jin. No. Cade, I don't make deals with the feds. Ever. This is different. Jin tried to kill you. He murdered your people. I handle my own problems. Cade tried to sit up, groaned, fell back. I don't need the government to fight my battles. You can barely move. You were dead on the table twice. Nyla's voice rose. How exactly are you planning to handle this? I'll figure it out. When? After Jin kills everyone you care about? After he takes everything you built? She leaned closer, her voice dropping to something fierce. Listen to me. You can't win this fight alone, not anymore. So either you take the FBI's deal or what? Or I testify without you. The words came out hard, final. I tell them everything I know. About Jin. About the organization. About all of it. And you get dragged down anyway. Cade stared at her like she'd just stabbed him. You wouldn't. Try me. Silence stretched between them, tense and brittle. Then Cade's expression shifted, anger melting into something that looked almost like respect. You'd burn my entire empire to save me. In a heartbeat, he laughed. It turned into a cough that made him wince. You're insane. Learned from the best. Nyla brushed hair back from his forehead, gentle despite her earlier fury. Please, take the deal. Let the FBI handle Jin, and then we can… She stopped. We can what? I don't know. Live? Try to be normal people? See if this thing between us works without the constant threat of death? Cade looked at her for a long moment. Then he squeezed her hand. Bring in the Fed. Agent Chen laid out the terms with brutal efficiency. Cade would provide detailed testimony about Jin Soo-hyun's activities, Park Ji-won's network, and the Busan organization's operations. He'd wear a wire for any future interactions. He'd cooperate fully with the investigation. In exchange, his criminal record would be sealed. No prosecution for past crimes. A clean slate. Ikishams in with conditions, Chen added. You exit the criminal enterprise entirely. No more operations. No more empire. You walk away and you stay away. Cade's jaw tightened. And my people? The ones who work for me? The legitimate businesses stay operational under new management. The illegal ones get shut down. Your employees find new jobs. Chen's tone left no room for negotiation. This is non-negotiable, Mr. Minseo. You want immunity? You give up the life. I need protection for Nyla and her family. Already arranged. We'll have agents watching them 24/7 until Jin and Park are in custody. Not good enough. I want them moved. New identities if necessary. Chen glanced at Nyla, who shook her head. I'm not hiding, Nyla said. And I'm not leaving Seoul while my mother's in treatment. Nyla, Cade started. No, you don't get to make that decision for me. She crossed her arms. I'll take protection, but I'm not running. Cade looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded, turning back to Chen. Fine. But if anything happens to her because of this deal, then the deal's off and you go to prison. Chen's smile was cold. So you better make sure your testimony puts Jin away for good. Now, let's talk about what you know. The debriefing lasted 3 hours. Cade talked through the pain medication fog, his voice getting weaker but never wavering. He gave Chen everything: financial records, safe house locations, corrupt officials on Jin's payroll, shipping routes, supplier contacts. 10 years of empire, dismantled in one conversation. When it was finally over, Chen stood, packed up her recording equipment. We'll move on Jin within 72 hours. Until then, you stay here. Hospital security plus 2 of my agents outside the door. She looked at Nyla. You too, Miss Vance. No leaving. No contact with anyone outside this room without clearance. What about my mother? My brother? We'll bring them here. Safer that way. Chen moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Minseo, you're making the right choice. Doesn't feel like it, Cade muttered. Chen left. Nyla sat down in the chair beside Cade's bed, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. You okay? No. He turned his head to look at her, and his eyes were hollow. I just destroyed everything I built. Everything I am. You're more than your empire. Am I? His voice went rough. I've been the Ghost King for 10 years, Nyla. I don't know how to be anything else. Then learn. She took his hand, laced their fingers together. We'll figure it out, together. You should leave me. Find someone who isn't... He gestured vaguely at himself. This. Too late. I'm stuck with you now. She managed a tired smile. Besides, you promised you'd come back, and you did. So now you're stuck with me too. Cade squeezed her hand, something fragile and desperate in his expression. I love you, he said quietly. I don't know when it happened, but I do. Nyla felt tears spill over. I love you too, you stubborn, reckless, impossible man. That's why you love me. Probably. She leaned forward, kissed his forehead. Now get some rest. You have a war to win. Just with lawyers and testimony instead of guns. Not nearly as satisfying, but significantly less likely to get you killed. Good point. He closed his eyes. Within minutes, his breathing evened out into sleep. Nyla sat beside him in the dim hospital room, listening to the monitor's beep, feeling the weight of what they'd just set in motion. Somewhere in Seoul, Jin was consolidating power, unaware that the FBI was closing in. Somewhere, Park Ji-won was planning her next move. And here, in this quiet room, 2 people who should never have met were clinging to each other while the world tried to tear them apart. Nyla pulled out her phone, texted Marcus. I'm safe. Mom's being moved to Seoul National, FBI protection. We'll explain everything soon. I love you. His reply came immediately. What the hell is going on? Long story. Trust me. I do. But Nyla, be careful. Always. She put the phone away, settled back into the chair. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Nyla's hand went to the gun tucked in her waistband. Chen had let her keep it, surprisingly. But it was just a nurse pushing a cart. Time for vitals, the nurse said cheerfully. She moved to Cade's bedside, checked his IV, his monitors. Everything routine. Then she pulled a syringe from her pocket. Nyla was on her feet instantly, gun raised. "Stop!" The nurse froze, her hand halfway to Cade's IV line. "Miss, I'm just—" Put the syringe down, slowly. "It's just medication." The doctor ordered. "I said put it down!" The nurse's expression changed, shifted from friendly to cold in an instant. Then she moved, fast, professional. The syringe went flying toward Nyla's face. Nyla ducked, fired. The shot went wide, punching through the window. The nurse, or whoever she was, grabbed a scalpel from the cart, lunged. Nyla sidestepped, brought the gun up. "Don't!" Too late. The woman was already inside her guard, the scalpel slashing. Nyla felt fire across her forearm, saw blood. She dropped the gun, stumbled back. The woman kicked the gun away, raised the scalpel again. The door burst open. Agent Chen and 2 FBI agents poured in, weapons drawn. "Freeze!" The woman didn't freeze. She dove for the window, already broken from Nyla's shot, and went through it. 3rd floor, 30-foot drop. Chen ran to the window, looked down. "She's gone!" "Fire escape!" "God damn it!" She spun to one of the agents. "Lock down, now! I want every exit sealed, every floor searched." The agents ran. Chen moved to Nyla, who was pressing her hand against the bleeding cut on her arm. "You okay?" "Fine, just a scratch." Nyla looked at Cade, still unconscious, unaware he'd almost been murdered again. She was going to kill him. Probably. Chen picked up the syringe with a gloved hand, sniffed it. Potassium chloride, if I had to guess, would have looked like cardiac arrest, clean, untraceable. Jin sent her. Or Park Ji-won. Either way, they know where he is. Chen pulled out her phone, started typing. "We need to move him, now, before they try again." "Where?" "Safe house. Somewhere they can't find." She looked at Nyla. "You too. This location is compromised." 20 minutes later, Cade was being loaded into an unmarked ambulance, still unconscious from the pain medication. Nyla climbed in beside him, her arm bandaged, her gun reloaded. Chen sat across from them. "We're going to a secure location outside the city. Medical staff will be there to monitor him. But Nyla—" She leaned forward. "This changes things. Jin knows we're protecting Cade, which means he's going to move fast. We need to accelerate our timeline." "How fast?" "Tomorrow night. We hit Jin's operations center. Arrest him and everyone in his inner circle. It's risky, but if you wait, he disappears." Nyla understood. "What do you need from us?" "Cade needs to tell us exactly where Jin will be tomorrow night. And you—" Chen handed her a small device. "You need to get this to Jin." Nyla looked at the device. GPS tracker, maybe. Or a bug. "How am I supposed to do that?" "Jin thinks you're dead. Or in hiding. Either way, you're not a threat." Chen's smile was sharp. "But if you showed up asking for protection, claiming Cade betrayed you, he'd listen. You want me to go undercover. I want you to get close enough to plant that tracker. Then we follow Jin to his meeting with Park Ji-won, and we take them both down." "That's insane. That's the job." Nyla looked at Cade, unconscious and broken. Thought about Jin's betrayal, about Park Ji-won's cold smile, about Kwon giving his life to help her escape. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." The safe house was a compound in the mountains outside Seoul. High walls, armed guards, cameras everywhere. Cade woke up in a bedroom that looked like a hotel suite, monitors still beeping beside him. Nyla sat in a chair by the window, staring out at the forest. "Where are we?" His voice was stronger now. The surgery was holding. "Safe house, FBI protection." She turned to face him. "They're moving on Jin tomorrow night." "That fast?" "He sent someone to kill you at the hospital, a fake nurse. She almost succeeded." Cade's expression went cold. "You stopped her." "Agent Chen stopped her. I just slowed her down." Nyla touched the bandage on her arm. "But yeah, I got in the way. You could have been killed. So could you. That was kind of the point." She moved to sit on the edge of his bed. "Chen wants me to go undercover, get close to Jin, plant a tracker." "No. Cade, absolutely not. That's a suicide mission. It's the only way to find Park Ji-won. Jin won't meet her anywhere we can predict. But if we're tracking him, Send someone else, an actual agent, not a civilian with no training. Cade tried to sit up, winced. Nyla, please, don't do this. I have to. She took his hand. Jin needs to pay for what he did. To you, to your people, to us. And this is how we make that happen. By risking your life? You've risked yours for me 12 times. That's different. Why? Because you're the crime lord and I'm just the dancer? Anger crept into her voice. I'm not helpless, Cade. I fought my way out of a basement. I shot 3 men. I survived. So stop treating me like something fragile. Cade stared at her, conflict warring across his face. Then he pulled her down, kissed her hard. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. If something happens to you, it won't. But if it does, then you make sure Jin pays. Nyla pulled back, looked him in the eyes. Promise me. No matter what happens to me, you make sure he goes down. I promise. His voice was rough. But Nyla, come back. Please, come back to me. I will. She hoped it wasn't a lie. Nachitad. The next evening, Nyla stood outside one of Jin's new operation centers, a nightclub in Gangnam, expensive and exclusive. She'd changed clothes, fixed her makeup, made herself look desperate. Not hard. She felt desperate. Agent Chen's voice came through the tiny earpiece hidden in her ear. We have you on visual. 6 agents positioned around the building. You're covered. Copy that, Nyla murmured. She walked to the entrance. The bouncer looked her up and down. Members only. I need to see Jin Soo Yun. Tell him Nyla Vance is here. The bouncer's expression shifted. Recognition. Fear. He pulled out a phone, spoke in rapid Korean. 2 minutes later, he stepped aside. Go in, straight to the back. VIP section. Nyla walked through the club, her heart hammering. Music pounded. Bodies moved on the dance floor. Everything surreal and wrong. The VIP section was separated by velvet ropes and armed guards. Jin sat in the center booth, surrounded by his new lieutenants. He looked up when she approached, and genuine surprise flickered across his face. Nyla Vance, I heard you were dead. You heard wrong. She stopped at the edge of the seating area. We need to talk. Jin studied her, calculating. Then he gestured to his men. Leave us. They filed out. Now it was just the 2 of them. Jin leaned back. Sit. Tell me what you're doing here. Nyla sat, keeping her hands visible. I need protection. From? From Park Ji-won. From anyone else who thinks I'm leverage against Cade. She forced her voice to shake. He's in FBI custody, cutting a deal, and he gave them everything, including me, my name, my address, my family. Jin's eyes narrowed. He sold you out? Said I was a liability, that I knew too much. Tears pricked at her eyes, not entirely fake. I loved him, and he threw me away the second things got hard. And now you want my help. I want to disappear. New identity, new life, far from Seoul. She leaned forward. You're taking over his operations. You have the resources. Help me, and I'll tell you everything the FBI knows, every detail of their case against you. Jin was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. You're lying, he said finally. Nyla's blood went cold. I'm not. Yes, you are. Because Cade Minseo would never sell you out, even to save himself. Jin smiled. He's many things, but when he loves someone, he's loyal to the point of stupidity. You, apparently, are the proof. Then why am I letting you sit here instead of putting a bullet in your head? Jin leaned forward. Because I'm curious what the FBI thinks this will accomplish. You're wired, obviously, probably wearing a tracker. They're listening right now. In Nyla's ear, Chen's voice. Abort. Get out. Now. But Jin was already moving. He grabbed Nyla's wrist, yanked her forward, found the tracker Chen had given her, crushed it under his heel. Tell Agent Chen I said hello, Jin said. Then he pulled out a gun, pressed it to Nyla's temple. And tell her if she doesn't call off her team in the next 60 seconds, I paint the walls with your brain. Nyla froze, her heart stopping. Chen's voice in her ear, tight. We're pulling back. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Jin smiled. Smart woman. He lowered the gun, but didn't release Nyla's wrist. Now, Let's have a real conversation about what happens next. He dragged her deeper into the club, toward a back room. The door closed behind them with a heavy thud, and Nyla realized she'd just walked into a trap she might not walk out of. The room was soundproofed, empty except for a table, 2 chairs, and a camera mounted in the corner. Jin shoved Nyla into one of the chairs. Strip. I want to make sure you're not carrying any more surprises. I'm not. He cocked the gun. Strip. Now. Nyla's hands shook as she pulled off her jacket, her shirt, revealed the wire taped to her ribs. Jin ripped it off, threw it on the ground, crushed it. Then he gestured for her to continue. She did, down to her underwear. Humiliated, terrified. Jin searched her clothes methodically, found nothing else, tossed them back to her. Get dressed. She did, her mind racing. Chen and the FBI couldn't hear her anymore, couldn't track her. For all they knew, she was already dead. She was alone. Jin sat in the other chair, the gun resting casually on his knee. Let me tell you a story, Nyla, about a man named Cade. I don't want to hear... 10 years ago, I ran the western territories of Seoul, had my own empire, my own people. Then Cade came along, fresh off murdering his fiance's killers, and decided everything was his. He gave me a choice, work for him or die. So I worked, and I waited, and I planned. You betrayed him. I freed myself from him. Jin's voice was calm, rational. And now I'm going to take everything he built and make it mine. The legitimate businesses, the political connections, all of it. The FBI will stop you. Will they? They have no evidence, no witnesses. Cade's testimony is the word of a known criminal against mine. And you, he smiled, you're a complication that's about to disappear. Nyla's hand slid toward her waistband, the gun Chen had let her keep. Don't! Jin raised his weapon. You think I didn't check for that? It's on the table, behind me, out of reach. Nyla looked. He was right. He'd taken it while she was undressing. She was unarmed, helpless. Here's what's going to happen, Jin continued. In about 30 minutes, Park Ji-won is going to arrive. We're going to have a meeting about consolidating power. And then, he stood, moved behind her chair. Then we're going to film something special. You, begging Cade to surrender himself, to stop cooperating with the FBI. Very emotional, very convincing. He won't believe it. He will when we send him pieces of you to prove it's real. Jin's hand landed on her shoulder. Starting with fingers, then toes. Then we get creative. Nyla couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the terror flooding her system. Then the door exploded inward. Not the FBI, not a rescue. Cade. He stood in the doorway, one arm in a sling, his face still bruised and swollen, but his eyes absolutely clear. He held a gun in his good hand, pointed directly at Jin's head. Step away from her, Cade said, his voice dead calm. Now! Jin's gun swung toward Nyla's head. I'll kill her. Then I'll kill you, and you'll both be dead. Cade took a step into the room. That what you want? You should be in FBI custody. I walked out. Turns out they can't actually hold you when you haven't been charged. Another step. Last chance, Jin. Let her go. Or what? You'll shoot me? With one arm? While I've got a gun to her head? Jin laughed. You're not that good, Cade. Not anymore. You're right. Cade lowered his weapon slightly. I'm not. But she is. Nyla didn't hesitate. She'd been a dancer for 15 years, knew her body like a weapon, knew exactly how to move. She threw herself sideways out of the chair, away from Jin's gun. Cade fired. The bullet caught Jin in the shoulder. He screamed, his gun falling. Nyla scrambled for her weapon on the table, grabbed it, spun. Jin was already moving, diving for cover behind the overturned chair. Cade fired again. Missed. Jin returned fire. 3 shots. Wild. One shattered the camera. One punched through the wall. One caught Cade in the chest. He went down. No! Nyla screamed. She fired. Once, twice, 3 times. Jin jerked with each impact, blood blooming across his shirt. He staggered back, his gun falling from his hand. Then he collapsed. Nyla ran to Cade, her hands frantically checking for the wound. The bullet had hit his vest, FBI issued, thank God. But the impact had broken ribs, knocked the wind out of him. Cade, look at me. His eyes opened. You okay? Am I? You just got shot? Again. Vest caught it. I'm fine. He tried to sit up, groaned. Maybe not fine, but alive. Behind them, Jin coughed. Blood bubbled at his lips. Nyla turned, her gun still raised. Jin was dying. They both knew it. Cade, he rasped. You won. Yeah. Cade's voice was empty. I did. But it cost you everything, didn't it? Your empire, your power, everything you built. Jin's smile was bloody. Was she worth it? Cade looked at Nyla, at the woman who'd walked into his life and shattered 10 years of careful numbness, who'd fought beside him, who'd refused to run even when staying meant death. Yes, he said. She was worth everything. Jin laughed. It turned into a cough that made him convulse. Then I hope you're happy, because Ji-won's coming. And when she finds out you killed me... He stopped, his eyes going unfocused. She'll burn your world down. Then he was gone. Nyla stood over his body, the gun heavy in her hand. She'd just killed someone. Should feel something. Horror, guilt, regret. She felt nothing except relief. Cade was alive. Jin was dead, and they'd survived. Sirens wailed in the distance. The FBI, probably. Or the Korean police. Either way, this was over. Nyla helped Cade to his feet, let him lean on her as they stumbled toward the exit. Outside, Agent Chen was waiting with a dozen agents, weapons drawn. Stand down, Chen called. We've got them. Cade raised his good hand. Jin's dead, inside. Park Ji-won's on her way here. If you move now, you can catch her. Chen hesitated, then nodded. She barked orders. Half the agents swept into the club. The other half secured the perimeter. Chen approached Cade and Nyla. You're both under arrest for saving my life, Nyla interrupted. Jin was going to torture me, kill me. Cade stopped him. After escaping FBI custody. I walked out, Cade said. You never charged me. Can't escape if you were never detained. Chen's jaw tightened, but she knew he was right. Fine, but you're coming with me. Both of you. We need statements. And she stopped, her radio crackling. Agent Chen, we have movement on the south side. Multiple vehicles. Armed hostiles. Chen's expression went hard. It's Ji-won. She's here. Before anyone could react, gunfire erupted. The world exploded into chaos. FBI agents returning fire. Car doors slamming. Orders shouted in Korean and English. Cade grabbed Nyla, pulled her behind a car. Stay down. Like hell. She raised her gun, peered over the hood. Park Ji-won's forces had arrived in force. 10 cars, maybe 20 men, all heavily armed. They were laying down suppressing fire, trying to push through the FBI perimeter. In the center of the chaos, Nyla saw her. Ji-won, standing behind an SUV, giving orders, her expression absolutely calm. She's trying to escape, Nyla said. Let the FBI handle it. They can't see her. She's going to slip away. Nyla met his eyes. This ends now, Cade. Tonight. Or we'll never be safe. Before he could stop her, she ran. Across the parking lot, using cars for cover, bullets whining past her head, every instinct screaming at her to stop, to hide, to survive. But she kept moving. Ji-won saw her coming. Her eyes widened. Then she smiled, pulling out her own weapon. They fired simultaneously. Nyla felt something punch her shoulder, felt herself spinning, falling. Ji-won staggered, a bloom of red on her chest. They both went down. Nyla hit the pavement hard, her vision blurring. She couldn't feel her arm, couldn't tell if she was dying or just hurt. Then Cade was there, kneeling beside her, his hands on her face. Nyla, stay with me. Did I get her? Yeah, you got her. His voice was thick. But you're hit. I'm okay. She tried to sit up, groaned. Shoulder, just the shoulder. Medics swarmed them. Cade was pulled away, arguing, trying to stay close, but they were loading her into an ambulance, pressure on her wound, someone shouting about arterial bleeding. The last thing Nyla saw before they closed the doors was Cade, standing in the chaos, covered in blood and bruises, watching her with absolutely devastated eyes. Then darkness. Nyla woke to the sterile white ceiling of a hospital room and the steady beep of monitors tracking her heartbeat. Her shoulder burned, fire spreading through muscle and bone, pain radiating down her arm despite whatever medication they'd given her. She tried to move, felt resistance, restraints on her wrist, soft but present. "Easy," a woman's voice. Agent Chen, sitting in a chair by the window. "You tore your stitches twice already. Doctor said if you do it again, they're sedating you." Nyla's throat felt like sandpaper.
How long? 36 hours. You lost a lot of blood. The bullet nicked your subclavian artery. Surgeon said another inch and you'd have bled out before the ambulance arrived. 36 hours. A day and a half gone. Cade, Nyla croaked. Where?
"He's fine. Broken ribs from the vest impact, but nothing critical. We've got him in protective custody 3 floors down." Chen stood, moved closer. "He's asked about you every hour, threatened to break out twice. We had to post extra guards." Despite everything, Nyla smiled. "That sounds like him." "Park Ji-won didn't make it," Chen continued. "Died in surgery. Jin Soo-hyun was DOA. We rounded up 17 of their associates. The Busan operation is effectively dismantled." "So it's over." "The immediate threat, yes. But Nyla," Chen's expression went serious. "We need to talk about what happens next, for both of you." Nyla's stomach tightened. "The deal is still on the table. Full immunity for Cade in exchange for his testimony. But there are conditions. He exits organized crime completely, sells off or shuts down every illegal operation, cooperates with ongoing investigations into his former associates." Chen pulled out a tablet, brought up documents. "He's already signed preliminary agreements, financial disclosures, asset forfeiture, everything. He gave it all up, every last piece. The empire he spent 10 years building is gone. Legitimate businesses are being sold to pay restitution to victims' families. Offshore accounts frozen and redistributed. By the time this is done, he'll have enough to live comfortably, but nothing close to what he had." Nyla absorbed this, trying to imagine Cade without the power, without the control. "How's he taking it?" "Better than expected. He said—" Chen checked her notes. "He said he'd trade the whole empire for 5 more minutes with you. So I'd say his priorities have shifted." Tears burned at the edges of Nyla's vision. She blinked them back. "What about me?" she asked. "Am I being charged?" "For killing Jin, self-defense. For the men at the safe house, also self-defense, and Kwan's testimony before he died corroborated your account. For working with a criminal organization." Chen paused. "We're calling you an unwitting participant. No charges. But Nyla, you need to understand something. Seoul's underworld doesn't forget. Even with Jin and Ji-won dead, there are people out there who lost money, lost power, lost family because of what happened. You and Cade are going to have targets on your backs for a long time." "So what do we do?" "We recommend relocation, new identities, witness protection." "No." The word came out sharp, final. "I'm not running. My mother's here. My brother. My life. Your mother's cancer treatment is almost complete. We can relocate her and Marcus with you. Set you up somewhere safe." I said no. Nyla met Chen's eyes. "I'm done hiding, done running. If people want to come after us, let them try. But I'm not abandoning Seoul." Chen studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'll pass that along to my supervisors. But Nyla, be smart. Cade's world was brutal for a reason. Not everyone plays by rules." "I know." Nyla's hand went to her bandaged shoulder. "Believe me, I know." Chen left with promises to check in later. The moment the door closed, Nyla started working on the wrist restraints. She dislocated her thumb once. She could do it again. 10 minutes of pain and she was free. She disconnected the monitors. Alarms would trigger eventually, but she'd have a few minutes. Stood on shaky legs, grabbed the IV pole for balance. Her hospital gown was useless. She found scrubs in a cabinet, pulled them on one-handed, her shoulder screaming. Every movement agony. She didn't care. She had to see him. The hallway was quiet, just shift change between nursing staff. Nyla moved toward the elevator, trying to look purposeful. A few nurses glanced at her but didn't stop her, just another patient wandering. 3rd floor down. Chen had said 3rd floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors opened, 2 FBI agents stood outside a room at the end of the hall. They saw her coming, hands moving to weapons. "I need to see him," Nyla said. The older agent shook his head. "No visitors without clearance from Agent Chen." "Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." "Ma'am, we have orders." The door opened behind them. Cade stood there in a hospital gown and sweatpants someone had brought him, his torso wrapped in bandages, his face still bruised but healing. His eyes found Nyla's. Everything else stopped mattering. "Let her in," Cade said quietly. The agents looked at each other. The older one sighed. 5 minutes. We'll be right outside." They stepped aside. Nyla walked into the room. The door closed behind her with a soft click. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. 2 people who'd been through hell and somehow made it out the other side. Then Cade moved, closed the distance between them in 3 strides, pulled her into his arms, careful of her shoulder, gentle despite the desperation in his grip. Nyla buried her face in his chest, felt his heart beating against her cheek, steady and alive and real. "You're okay," he whispered into her hair. "You're okay. So are you. I thought I lost you. When you went down, when they closed the ambulance doors..." His voice broke. "I thought that was it." Nyla pulled back enough to look up at him. "Takes more than a bullet to get rid of me." Apparently. His hand came up, cupped her face. "Nyla, He stopped, jaw working. "I gave up everything. The empire, the power, all of it. And I'd do it again 1,000 times, if it meant you were safe." "I know." She covered his hand with hers. "Chen told me about the deal, about what you're walking away from. Do you regret it? Any of this? Do you?" Cade was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I regret that you got hurt, that you had to kill someone because of my world, that your life got turned upside down because I couldn't stay away from you." He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. "But loving you? No. I don't regret that for a second." Nyla felt tears spill over. "I love you too. Even though you're stubborn and reckless and you walk back into burning buildings when you should run, someone had to save my people. And someone had to save you." She kissed him, gentle and careful, tasting salt and relief. When they pulled apart, she said, "So what happens now, after all this?" "I don't know." Cade's hand slid down to lace with hers. "I've spent 10 years being the Ghost King. I don't know how to be anything else. Then we figure it out. Together. No empire. No guns. Just us. Whatever that looks like." "That simple? That complicated?" Nyla smiled through tears. "But we've survived worse." A knock on the door. Agent Chen's voice. "Time's up. Miss Vance, you need to get back to your room before the doctors have my head." Cade squeezed Nyla's hand once more, then released it. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Promise?" "Promise." She walked to the door, paused, looked back at him standing in the sterile hospital room, no longer surrounded by luxury and power, just a man trying to figure out who he was without the empire. "Cade?" she said. "Yeah?" "You're going to be okay. We both are." His smile was small, fragile, but real. "Yeah, we are." Guests. 3 weeks later, Nyla stood in front of her mother's hospital room, gathering courage. Linda Vance's treatment had been successful. The cancer was in remission. She'd be released in 2 days. And she still had no idea what her daughter had been through. Marcus knew. Nyla had told him everything over coffee and tears, and the kind of honesty that only came after surviving impossible things. He'd been furious, then terrified, then finally, reluctantly, understanding. But their mother didn't know, couldn't know. The stress would kill her faster than any cancer. Nyla pushed open the door. Linda looked up from her book, her face lighting up. She looked better, healthier, color back in her cheeks. The treatments had worked. "Baby girl, I was wondering when you'd visit." Then she saw Nyla's arm in a sling, saw the careful way she moved. "What happened to your shoulder?" "Fell during practice." The lie came easily now. "Dislocated it. Nothing serious, just needs time to heal." Linda's eyes narrowed. "You're lying."
Mom, Nyla Grace Vance, I raised you for 26 years. I know when you're lying. Linda set her book down. What really happened? Nyla sat in the chair beside the bed, her mind racing. She'd prepared a dozen different cover stories, but looking at her mother's face, seeing the knowing expression there, the lies wouldn't come. I met someone, she said finally, someone complicated, someone dangerous, and I fell in love with him anyway. Linda was quiet for a moment. The man who paid for my treatment. How did you? Marcus told me. Not everything, but enough. Linda reached out, took Nyla's good hand. Is he worth it? All the complications and danger? Nyla thought about Cade, about the way he'd held her after the explosion, about him walking back into a burning building to save his people, about him giving up everything he'd built for a chance at something real. Yeah, she said, he is. Then that's all I need to know. Linda squeezed her hand. But sweetie, be careful. Love shouldn't cost you pieces of yourself. It hasn't. If anything, Nyla paused, searching for words. It made me stronger. Made me realize I could survive things I never thought possible. Good, because you're my fighter. Always have been. Linda smiled. Now tell me about him. What's his name? Cade. Cade Minseo. Korean. Korean American. He's... How did you describe a reformed crime lord to your mother? He's in business, transitioning careers right now. It's complicated. Everything worth having is... Linda settled back into her pillows. Bring him to meet me, before I'm discharged. I want to see the man who's got my daughter willing to lie about dislocated shoulders. Nyla laughed despite herself. I will. I promise. She stayed another hour talking about small things, Marcus's finals, the dance company Nyla wanted to start, Linda's plans for after treatment, normal things, safe things. When she finally left, Marcus was waiting in the hallway. You told her? He asked. Some of it, not the crime lord part. That conversation can wait until she's completely healthy. Fair. Marcus fell into step beside her. So I looked into Cade's legitimate businesses, the ones he's selling off. Marcus. Hear me out. There's a dance studio in Gangnam. Small, but nice. Good location. It's being liquidated as part of the asset forfeiture. He pulled out his phone, showed her photos. I know you've been talking about starting your own company. This could be perfect. Nyla looked at the images. Hardwood floors. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors, natural light streaming through large windows. It was beautiful. I can't afford that. No, but the foundation handling the liquidation is offering payment plans and... Marcus grinned. I may have already put in a preliminary offer, using the money you saved from not having to pay Mom's medical bills. You did what? You're welcome. Also, Cade called me. Nyla stopped walking. What? Yesterday. Said he wanted to make sure I knew his intentions were serious, that he wasn't going to hurt you, that he'd protect you with his life if necessary. Marcus's expression was complicated. Then he asked for my permission to keep seeing you, which was weird and old-fashioned and kind of sweet. What did you say? I said, if he breaks your heart, I'll break his legs. Marcus shrugged. He laughed, said that was fair. I think I like him. Nyla felt warmth spread through her chest. Cade was trying, really trying, to be someone who existed outside the empire, someone who asked for permission and made phone calls and cared about normal things. The studio, she said. You really think I could do it? I think you could do anything. Marcus bumped her shoulder, the good one. Besides, someone needs to teach Soul proper contemporary dance. Might as well be you. The FBI released Cade 2 days before Christmas. No charges filed. All testimony given. The deal completed in full. Nyla waited outside the federal building, leaning against a car Chen had arranged. When Cade walked out, wearing civilian clothes, no guards flanking him, just a man stepping into winter sunlight, she felt her breath catch. He looked different. Lighter, maybe, like a weight had been lifted. He saw her and his entire face transformed. Nyla met him halfway, threw her good arm around him, buried her face in his shoulder. He held her tight, lifting her slightly off the ground. It's done, he said quietly. It's really done. Yeah, it is. She pulled back, looked up at him. So what now?
Now I figure out how to be a normal person." He smiled, small and uncertain. "Think you can help with that?" "I can try. Fair warning, I'm not that normal either." "Good. Normal's overrated anyway." They got in the car. Nyla drove through Seoul's holiday traffic, the city decorated in lights and artificial snow. Cade stared out the window like he was seeing it for the first time. "I used to own pieces of this city," he said quietly. "Buildings, businesses, entire blocks. And now," he gestured vaguely, "nothing. Just another person trying to make rent. Is that weird?" "Terrifying, actually." He looked at her. "I don't know how to live without the empire, without the power. You learn, one day at a time." Nyla reached over, squeezed his hand. "And you're not alone. That helps." "Does it?" "It better, because you're stuck with me now." Cade brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. "Best thing that ever happened to me. Getting stuck with you." They ended up at Nyla's apartment, the cramped studio she'd been living in before everything exploded. It was tiny compared to Cade's penthouse. One room, shared bathroom down the hall, furniture from thrift stores. "This is it," Nyla said, suddenly self-conscious. "Not much, but it's perfect." Cade moved through the space, taking in the details. Her dance shoes hanging on the wall, photos of her family, books stacked in precarious piles. "This is you, real, not decorated by some designer who doesn't care." The penthouse was pretty impressive, though. The penthouse was a fortress. "This is a home." He sat on her worn couch, winced slightly. The ribs still hurt. Nyla sat beside him, careful of both their injuries. "So, Christmas is in 3 days. You have plans?" "Haven't celebrated Christmas in 10 years. Didn't see the point." "Well, you're celebrating this year. Mom's being discharged tomorrow. Marcus is cooking. You're invited." Cade looked at her like she'd just suggested he walk on water. "Your family doesn't want me there." "Marcus already likes you. Mom wants to meet you, and I want you there." She took his hand. "So you're coming. No arguments." "Nyla, they know what I was, what I did. They know you saved me. Multiple times. They know you gave up everything to make things right." She leaned against his shoulder. "The past doesn't define you, Cade. What you do next does." He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Okay, I'll come." "Good, because I already told Mom you were bringing dessert." "I don't cook." "Then you're learning. I'll help." Cade laughed. A real laugh, the sound rusty but genuine. "You're impossible." "You love it." "Yeah, I really do." Christmas dinner was chaos. Marcus had attempted to cook a traditional American meal. Turkey, stuffing, all of it. Half of it was burned. The other half was undercooked. But no one cared. Linda sat at the head of Nyla's tiny table, wearing a scarf over her thinning hair, her eyes bright despite the exhaustion that still clung to her. She'd insisted on coming, on being part of this. Cade had brought pie, store-bought, despite Nyla's teasing about making it himself. He sat beside Nyla, looking uncomfortable in a sweater Marcus had lent him, clearly out of his element. "So, Cade," Linda said, cutting into her turkey, "Nyla tells me you're transitioning careers." "Yes, ma'am. Getting out of my previous line of work. Looking for something more," he paused, "legitimate." "And what did you do before? If you don't mind my asking." Cade glanced at Nyla. She nodded slightly. "Your call." "I ran a business empire," he said carefully. "Import-export primarily. Some ventures that weren't exactly legal, but I've cut ties with all of that. Starting fresh." "Good for you. It takes courage to walk away from something you built." Linda took a sip of water. "Marcus looked you up online. There are rumors about you, some of them quite alarming." Marcus went red. "Mom, it's fine," Cade said. "The rumors are probably true, most of them. I wasn't a good man for a long time, Mrs. Vance. I hurt people, made choices I'm not proud of, and I can't take any of that back. But you're trying to do better." "I'm trying. Whether I succeed," he looked at Nyla, "that depends on a lot of things. But I'm going to try." Linda studied him with the kind of assessment only mothers could manage. Then she smiled. "That's all anyone can do. Try." And Cade? You make my daughter happy. I can see it. So whatever you were before, whoever you were, that matters less than who you choose to be now. Thank you, ma'am. Call me Linda. We're going to be seeing a lot of each other, I suspect. The rest of dinner passed in comfortable conversation. Marcus told stories about his college professors. Linda talked about her treatment, her prognosis. Nyla described her plans for the dance studio. Cade mostly listened, occasionally contributing, clearly overwhelmed by the normalcy of it all. After dinner, Nyla and Cade did dishes, while Marcus helped Linda to the couch. Your family is terrifying, Cade said quietly, scrubbing a plate. Mom liked you. That's a good sign. She knows what I am, what I was, and she's just okay with it? She's dying, Cade. Was dying. She's got perspective on what matters. Nyla bumped his hip with hers. Besides, you brought pie. That goes a long way. Store-bought pie. Still counts. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence. When they returned to the living room, Linda was asleep on the couch, exhausted. Marcus gestured toward the door. I'll get her settled. You two should go. Enjoy the rest of the night. Outside, Seoul was cold and quiet. Christmas lights reflected off fresh snow that wouldn't last until morning. Nyla and Cade walked through the streets, no destination in mind. Thank you, Cade said finally, for including me, for everything. You're part of my life now. Of course I'm including you. Your mother is dying. Was dying. She's in remission. Because I paid for her treatment. Because you're a good person who did a good thing. Nyla stopped walking, turned to face him. Cade, you need to stop punishing yourself for your past. Yes, you did bad things, but you're also doing good things now. Both can be true. Can they? They have to be. Otherwise, none of us get second chances. Cade pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They stood like that in the falling snow, two broken people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances, and decided to try anyway. I'm scared, Cade admitted quietly. I don't know how to do this, how to be normal, how to wake up without the Empire. Then we figure it out together, one day at a time, one choice at a time. Nyla pulled back, looked up at him. You're not alone, Cade, not anymore. Neither are you. They walked home through the quiet streets, hands clasped, two survivors of different wars learning how to live without fighting. 6 months later, Nyla stood in the center of her new dance studio, watching the late afternoon light stream through the windows. The space was hers, really hers. She'd signed the papers 2 weeks ago, using money from the payment plan Marcus had arranged, and a small business loan Cade had co-signed for. It still didn't feel real. The front door opened. Cade walked in, carrying coffee and a bag from the bakery down the street. Thought you could use a break, he said. I'm not even doing anything yet, just staring at empty space. Then stare with coffee. He handed her a cup, kissed her temple. How's it feel? Terrifying, exciting, I don't know. Nyla looked around at the bare walls, the mirrors, the potential. What if I can't make it work? Then you try something else, but Nyla, Cade turned her to face him. You're going to make it work. Because you're the most stubborn person I've ever met. And when you want something, you fight for it. I learned that from you. You knew it long before you met me. I just gave you a reason to show it. Nyla leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. 6 months since the explosion. 6 months of healing, physical and otherwise. Her shoulder still ached when it rained. Cade's ribs still gave him trouble. But they were alive. And they were trying. Cade had taken a job as a security consultant for a legitimate firm, using his knowledge of criminal operations to help businesses protect themselves. It was strange seeing him go to an office, wear a tie, answer to a boss, but he was adapting. They both were. I talked to Agent Chen yesterday, Cade said. Final check-in. She said all the cases are closed. No more testimony needed. So it's really over. Yeah, it's really over. He paused. She also said there's been chatter. Some of Jin's old associates are regrouping. Nothing major yet, but they might come after us eventually. Maybe. Or maybe they'll decide we're not worth the trouble. Cade's arms tightened around her. Either way, we'll handle it. Together. Together.
The studio door opened again. A young woman poked her head in, early 20s, nervous smile. "Hi, sorry, I saw the sign outside about auditions for the new company?" Nyla straightened, suddenly professional. "Yes, come in. I'm Nyla Vance. This is—" She paused. "How did you introduce your reformed crime lord boyfriend?" "This is Cade. He's helping me get set up." "I'm Una. I'm a contemporary dancer, studied at the Seoul Institute of the Arts." She looked around the empty studio. "This space is beautiful."
It will be, once we get mirrors installed and sound systems set up. Nyla gestured to the center of the floor. "Can you show me something, whatever you're working on?" Una nodded, pulled out her phone, started music. Then she began to move. She was good, really good, fluid and controlled, with the kind of emotional depth that came from real-life experience. When she finished, Nyla was smiling. "That was beautiful. When can you start?" "Really, just like that. Just like that. I need dancers who understand that movement tells stories. You get it." Nyla pulled out her own phone. "Give me your contact info. We'll do paperwork tomorrow." Una's eyes went wide. Thank you so much." After she left, Cade raised an eyebrow. "That was fast." "When you know, you know." Nyla's smile widened. "I'm really doing this, building something. From nothing. Not from nothing. From you. From everything you survived to get here." Cade moved to the windows, looking out at Seoul's afternoon rush. "I've been thinking about something." "What?" "After the studio's running, after things settle." He turned back to her. "I want to start a foundation for families of crime victims. Help them with medical bills, legal fees, therapy, all the things that get left behind when someone you love is hurt." Nyla's throat tightened. "Because of Soo-hyun. Because of everyone I hurt. Everyone Jin hurt. Everyone who gets caught in the crossfire." Cade's expression was vulnerable, open. "I can't bring them back. Can't undo what was done. But maybe I can help the ones still suffering." "That's a beautiful idea." "You think so?" "I think it's perfect." Nyla crossed to him, took his hands. "You're becoming the man you were always supposed to be, before the violence, before the empire. I'm becoming someone better because of you. We're becoming better together." They stood in the empty studio, afternoon light painting gold across the floor, two people who'd walked through fire and come out transformed. "Dance with me," Cade said suddenly. "There's no music. Don't need it." He pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. "Just dance with me." They moved together in silence, swaying gently, no rhythm but their breathing. No audience but the empty space and the possibility of everything they were building. It wasn't the gala anymore. Wasn't a ballroom full of predators. Just two people in an empty studio, choosing each other over and over again. "I love you," Cade said quietly. "I love you too. Even though I'm a disaster, especially because you're a disaster, my disaster." He laughed, spun her carefully. "What do you think happens to us? In the long run?" "I don't know. We run the studio. You do your foundation work. We adopt a dog. Maybe eventually—" She paused. "Eventually what?" "Maybe eventually you ask me to marry you, and I say yes, and we have a small wedding with Mom and Marcus and Agent Chen as the weirdest guest list ever." Cade stopped moving, looking down at her with something intense and tender. "You've thought about this?" "Maybe." "Me too." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Nyla's heart stopped. "Cade, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together 7 months. I know there are 1,000 reasons to wait." He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, no massive diamond, just a single stone set in silver. "But I also know I don't want to wait. I don't want to waste time being careful when I could be choosing you." "This is insane." "Probably," he smiled. "But so was dancing with you at the gala. And look how that turned out." Nyla stared at the ring, her vision blurring with tears. "If I say yes, people are going to think I'm crazy." "Are you?" "Absolutely, but I'm saying yes anyway." Cade's smile could have lit the whole city. He slid the ring onto her finger. A perfect fit. Then he kissed her, deep and certain, and absolutely fearless. When they broke apart, Nyla was laughing and crying at the same time. "We're getting married," she said. "We're getting married. Mom's going to lose her mind. Marcus is going to threaten me again. Agent Chen is going to think we're both insane. They're all probably right." Cade pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. "But I don't care. I choose you. Every time. Forever." "Forever," Nyla echoed. They stood in their empty studio, newly engaged, two people who'd survived the impossible and decided that impossible was just the beginning. Tuck. 1 year later, on a spring evening when Seoul bloomed with cherry blossoms, Nyla Vance married Cade Minseo in a small ceremony at the dance studio. Linda sat in the front row, cancer-free and beaming, her hair grown back in silver curls. Marcus stood as Nyla's man of honor, still slightly suspicious of Cade, but willing to trust his sister's judgment. Agent Chen attended, off-duty, bringing a gift and a warning to Cade that she'd be watching. The ceremony was simple. No grand ballroom, no hundreds of guests, just 30 people who mattered, packed into a space that smelled like rosin and dreams. Nyla wore a simple white dress. Cade wore a suit that cost less than his socks used to. They wrote their own vows. "I promise to choose you," Nyla said, her voice steady despite the tears. "Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because you taught me that love isn't about perfect circumstances. It's about deciding someone is worth fighting for." Cade's turn. He took a breath, his hands shaking slightly as he held hers. 10 years ago, I became a ghost. I locked myself away and convinced myself it was strength. Then you walked into my life and demanded I dance. And in that single moment, you reminded me what it meant to be human. He swallowed hard. "I promise to keep choosing humanity, to keep choosing you, to keep choosing the kind of man you make me want to be." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. They exchanged rings. The officiant pronounced them married. Cade kissed his bride like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Because she was. The reception was loud and chaotic. Nyla's dance company performed, 8 dancers now, all brilliant, all chosen by Nyla herself. Marcus gave a speech that was equal parts touching and threatening. Linda cried happy tears. Late in the evening, after most guests had left, Nyla and Cade stood on the studio's small balcony, watching Seoul's lights sparkle below. "You okay?" Nyla asked. "Yeah, just thinking." Cade's arm wrapped around her waist. "About how different everything is. A year ago I was running an empire. Now I'm married to a dance instructor and working a 9 to 5. "Regrets?" "Not even one." He turned her to face him. "This, you, the foundation, actual normal life. It's better than anything I built before. Because it's real." "It is real," Nyla smiled. "And it's ours." "Ours," Cade agreed. Music drifted up from the studio below. Someone had left the sound system on. A slow jazz number, intimate and warm. "Dance with me," Cade said, echoing the words that started everything. "Always." They swayed together on the balcony, husband and wife, 2 survivors who'd found each other in the darkest moment and chosen light instead. The city moved around them, millions of people living their own stories, fighting their own battles. Somewhere out there, new empires were rising, new ghosts were being born. But here, in this moment, there was only music and movement, and the simple truth that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was let yourself be loved. "Thank you," Nyla whispered. "For what?" "For taking my hand that night at the gala. You could have walked away. Could have had me removed, but you didn't. Best decision I ever made." Cade kissed her forehead. "You saved me, Nyla. In every way a person can be saved. We saved each other." "Yeah, we did." They danced as the night deepened, as Seoul's neon bled into stars, as their new life stretched out before them like an unwritten story. Once Cade Minseo had ruled through distance and fear. Now he lived through connection and love. Once he'd been untouchable, a ghost king carved from ice and vengeance. Now he was human, flawed, real. And in the arms of the woman who'd refused to be afraid of him, who'd looked past the monster to find the man underneath, he finally understood what it meant to be whole. The empire was gone, but something better had taken its place. Something fragile and fierce and worth every sacrifice. A life. A love. a future built on choice instead of control. And as Cade Minseo danced with his wife under Seoul's spring sky, he knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. Not power, not fear, but her. Always her. Forever. The end? In the quiet spaces between heartbeats, we choose who we become. Cade Minseo chose love over empire. Nyla Vance chose courage over safety. Together, they chose each other, flawed, broken, and beautifully human. Their story is a reminder that redemption isn't found in perfection, but in the daily decision to be better than you were yesterday. To touch, to connect, to allow yourself to be changed by someone brave enough to see you as you truly are. This is not a story about a mafia king and his conquest. This is a story about two people who learned that the greatest strength isn't in ruling others. It's in allowing yourself to be vulnerable with the one person who matters most. And sometimes that makes all the difference.